You can always use this bottle once.
Yeah.
Or that.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
He'll
Am
be
I
busy.
on, we're on YouTube now?
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, right?
I'm
You're
pretty sure. We'll find out in 1 second.
You guys are live.
Unmute. There it goes. Now it is.
we're live on YouTube.
Hey, Bill, can you hear me?
I think we can all hear you.
Okay, great. It is 6:09 and you have a quorum.
Not bad.
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. This is the Wednesday, June 10th, 2020 meeting of the Historic Resources Preservation Board. And could we get a roll call? Ms.
Certainly. Judith Fox,
Here, do you need?
Bernard Guthrie,
I am here.
Bill Feldkamp,
Here.
Judy Just. Here. Ozzy Ona,
Here.
David Cavorsi, Robert Dorenzo.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. We have a quorum. Due to the circumstances, we will dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance and go right into additions, deletions, and reordering. Mr. Hodges, any changes to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then could we get an approval of the minutes? Could I hear a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Now we go into swearing in of staff and applicants. Ms. Cole.
Okay, so I have, Keith, would you be able to bring over all of the applicants? Thank you.
Can we have all of the applicants turn on your cameras and mics?
Oh, it's Michael. He paints.
Hello, yeah, this is Juan Contin.
Hi, it's Bhavin Shah.
Maria Potts.
Ike Coyle. Wes Blackman.
Okay, I have one other person. Julie, you're there, you can hear us? And Brian? You don't have to join at the moment. And then I have one other person, I'm not familiar with the name. It's Faten Almo.
Yeah, she works with Content Architects.
Okay, so she's on it, so she's giving testimony, she needs to,
No, she won't be, no, she won't.
okay, thank you.
Sherry, I don't believe that Julie and
No,
Brian,
no, Julie and Brian.
their
okay.
item is legislative, not quasi-judicial.
Right, they don't have to, I said it, but I don't, I just wasn't aware of who the one party was. So everybody who's planning to give testimony, please raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes.
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 Thank you.
All right. We need a quick proof of publication, Ms. Cole.
We have two, sorry, I believe it was two publications or two sets. One set was in the Lake Worth Herald with the 4, and then I think there was the 5th one was in the Palm Beach Post. It should have been
Wonderful.
included in your packet.
Okay, no withdrawals, no postponements.
No, Mr. Chairman.
All righty. Now we go to board disclosures. Let's start with Judith Just. Disclosures.
I spoke with Juan Contin. He called and asked if I had any questions about the project. That nothing that would affect my decision making.
Okay, Mr. Dorenzo.
Nothing to disclose.
Nothing disclosed. Mr. Guthrie?
I know Juan Compton. I know Anthony Murata. I've worked extensively on the 1000 building when I was on the CRA, but I've got no conflicts.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fox?
I am a friend of Mr. Murata, and I also had the same contact that Judith had with the architectural firm today, but
All right.
didn't know anything.
Okay, and Mr. Ona?
Nothing to disclose.
No, okay. I need to disclose that about 2 years ago, I met several times with Bhavan Shah and toured the building at that time. I assume there is no unfinished business, Mr. Hodges?
No, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Well, then let's go directly into the new business at 401 South Lakeside Drive. Take it away.
Now what do I do?
407.
1 second, just getting loaded.
Mhm.
That's 407, correct?
Yes.
Now I did something.
Can you swap those?
407.
Yeah, there again.
407.
Okay, well, just for the record, this is Jordan Hodges. I'm the Senior Historic Preservation Coordinator for the City of Lake Worth Beach, and I'll be presenting this item before you this evening. This is item, excuse me, this is item A, consideration of a completed work application and a recommendation to the Lake Worth Beach City Commission for a historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption for the subject property at 407 South Lakeside Drive. The subject property is a contributing resource to the South Palm Park Local Historic District and is located within the low density medium family MF20 zoning district. The property owner, Justin Hu, is requesting certification of a completed work application and a recommendation to the Lake Worth Beach City Commission for a historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption. Again, the property is located in the low density multifamily zoning district, and it is a contributing resource to the South Palm Park Historic District. Just a brief recap of the property. The building and the rear two-story garage apartment structure were constructed circa 1928 in a Mediterranean revival architectural style. And remaining character defining features include asymmetrical facades, sloped barrel tile roofs, stucco siding, arched recessed window hoods, wood bracketed overhangs, vertical wood plank entry doors, decorative curving staircases, and a cupola tower with triplets of arches and a pecky cypress ceiling. There are 7 pretty gracious one-bedroom apartments in the front structure, and I believe a one-bedroom apartment in the garage or on the garage apartment. The front structure at some point in time was likely 2 separate structures were combined, giving the building its current massing. But on October 10th, 2018, the HRPB approved a request by the applicant for a certificate of appropriateness for exterior alterations and a pre-construction approval for the historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption. The applicant did work closely with staff to devise a rehabilitation plan for the structure, as the building had been had set in a state of disrepair for many years. But as outlined in the staff report on pages 4 and 5, the scope of the rehabilitation for the exterior of the buildings included window replacement with impact single hung products, door replacement with new fiberglass vertical plank doors, roof replacement with new clay barrel tiles, exterior stucco repair. There was a front porch reconstruction for the front structure, and then a staircase reconstruction for the rear structure, and then new mini split AC installations. But in addition to that scope of work, both structures were also painted and received complete interior renovations, including new electric, plumbing, and mechanical systems. They received new drywall, new interior doors, flooring, kitchens, and bathrooms. New landscaping and paver walkways were also installed, and extensive portions of the building were also reframed from the interior, and new flood vents were added to make the structure more FEMA compliant. So now we'll walk through some of the before and after photos for the completed work application. But this is the front facade fronting South Lakeside Drive. And as you can see, some of the old all of the old jalousie windows were replaced with more compatible divided light single hung windows. The front porch, which had a scrolled non-original wrought iron railing and column system, that was replaced with a new wood railing and wood column system. The board also included the condition of approval to reconfigure the parapet and add quarter circle returns on the south massing of the building. And as you can see, that was completed. In addition, you can see the new tile on the front porch, paver walkways, and new landscaping for the property. And the applicant had originally proposed replacing the roof systems on the building, but it was determined that the roofs had actually been replaced fairly recently and they were still in very good condition. So that was removed from the scope of work. Here's a photo from the northeast corner of the property. From the removal of the overgrown landscaping, you can really see the front staircase, which has some decorative arch punch outs. It's a little difficult to make out in these photos, but as I said, the whole building was re-stuccoed, and staff did meet multiple times with the stucco contractor to get the correct texture and application. As you can see, the window AC units have also been removed and replaced with the new mini split systems, and staff conditioned that approval to where all of the mini split refrigerant and drip lines and air ducts be run on the inside of the exterior walls of the structure to eliminate, all the lines running on the building facades. These are photos taken from the front porch. As you can see on the left, the structure retained 4 of its original vertical wood plank doors, which featured, small 4-light windows. But at staff's recommendation, the board included a condition of approval that these doors not be replaced and that they be repaired and preserved. And all 4 of the original doors were removed, repaired, and then reinstalled with new hinges and hardware. Here you can see some before and after photos of the 2nd-story front porch. New engineered wood decking was laid on the walkway, and you can really see the new wood column and railing configurations. Staff had made a condition that the railing and column configuration replicate the porch design of the property at 602 North Lakeside Drive, which is another MedRev structure with similar detailing. And then the board added the condition that the vertical pickets in the railing system be 36 inches high, with an added guardrail at 42 inches. This is the design that was worked out between the applicant and staff at permitting, which does comply that condition. This is the south facade of the structure. As you can see, new windows, new stucco. In addition, there's kind of a breezeway that cuts through the 2nd floor from north to south. And on the before photo, there's a narrow staircase that was located in the side setback leading up to that. But the staircase wasn't necessary. It likely wasn't original, and it was in very poor condition. So the applicant, again, removed the staircase and turned the upstairs landing into an open air porch with decorative arches that replicate the arches on the front porch. These are some before and after photos of the north facade courtyard area, which includes circulation and access paths to the rear 1st and 2nd-story units. Again, the stucco is new, windows and the doors were replaced per the approval, and then new tile on the walking areas. On the left, you can see another photo of the stair access to the rear units. You can see the new mini split condensing units in the photo, and it was a bit challenging locating those around the property due to the lack of space, but most of them are located in the courtyard area. And well, although they're visible now, the applicant has planted shrubs and bushes, which will obscure many of them in the coming months. But the middle photo and the photo to the right, you can see the east facade of the rear 2-story garage. The staircase had to be completely reconstructed, and at permitting, we decided on utilizing decorative carved splats on the railing system, which turned out really nice. This was the rear facade off of the alley. You can see the south facade of the rear two-story garage apartment in the back of the main structure. As you can see, the building was pretty cluttered. It had a lot of satellite dishes and utility lines and was just kind of generally in a rundown condition. And this is that view today. As you can see, there are all new windows, new parking area was, or I'm sorry, the parking area was resurfaced. The bracketed wood overhangs were restored and new landscaping. All of the through the wall air conditioning units were also removed and the stucco patched, and all the utility lines were consolidated and reduced. Although it's outside the scope of the HRPB, the rehab did include the full renovation of the interior of all 7 apartments. So I've included just a few shots of those. The rehab includes higher end appliances and kitchens and bathrooms. On the living room shot there, you can see one of the original front doors. Unfortunately, most of the interior plaster was removed for the reframing efforts and to replace some deteriorated structural members, but the applicant did keep the arched doorways and the general room configurations. Okay. So staff has reviewed the documentation and materials provided in the application, and we did perform multiple site visits to the property during construction and at final inspection. And it is staff's analysis that the work proposed at the property followed the scope of work approved in the pre-construction application and is in compliance with the conditions of approval included in the Certificate of Appropriateness Development Order. Just to hit on the timeline of this project, again, the applicant's building permit application was applied for on April 24th, 2018, and final inspection occurred on April 2nd, 2020. A certificate of completion was then issued on April 13th, 2020, and the overall project was given a building permit valuation of $275,000. But should the board determine that the qualifying improvements were successfully completed in accordance with the pre-construction application and recommends approval for the completed work application, staff will forward all the materials to the Lake Worth Beach City Commission for final approval. And once the application has been approved by City Commission, it will then be forwarded to the county for processing and approval by the County Board of Commissioners. Staff is recommending approval of the completed work application and a recommendation for the approval of the Historic Preservation ad valorem tax exemption to the Lake Worth Beach City Commission. That does conclude staff's presentation. I did not see that the applicant was able to log on this evening. So I don't believe that we have any applicant presentations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hodges. That's unfortunate that the applicant is not here to hear our comments. I guess there's public comments if there is any public here. Otherwise, comments from the board.
Chip Guthrie.
Yes, Chip.
Generally speaking, it's a beautiful renovation. And I noticed that where I believe it was your recommendation, Mr. Chair, to adorn the left-hand side of the parapets up there with those, I don't know what you call them, but it does make a really big difference to have those added to the top over there. It really completes the front facade and really makes it symmetrical. They really did a nice job. And I just wanted to ask for clarification. The tax abatement for historical is the difference between the valuation of the property before they started and the appraisal of the property once it has been completed. They are not taxed on that increase in value, taxable value, for a period of 10 years. Is that correct?
That's correct. And at the end of 10 years, the property will be reassessed and put back on the tax rolls.
Other comments from board members?
Well, as I have a property next to them for the 2 units south of the building. And I owned the properties for like 15 years. And during all this time, it was a beautiful building, but it was completely neglected. many times to try to contact the owner. The owner was living in New York someplace, but they never have opportunity to talk to the owner because we have a lot of complaints about this building. Finally, to see all this transformation is incredible. It's another piece of, Jordan, thank you for your hard work. The reflection really on top of that thing. Thank you.
Yep, and my comments too. Thank you, Jordan, and thank you very much to the owner, wherever he is. This is an incredible job. I do hope that when we come to an awards season that this one is nominated for an award. Beautifully
Yep.
done.
We do have a nomination for this property already in, so you'll be seeing it.
Excellent. Any other comments from board members?
It's a great job. It looks beautiful.
Say that again.
I said it was a great improvement. It looks beautiful. Thanks for everybody's hard work.
Yeah. Can I get a motion from someone?
Chip
I move-
Guthrie,
Oh, go ahead.
Chip Guthrie, you want to make a motion?
I move to approve HRPB project number 18-001000211 for a completed work application for a historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption for the property located at 407 South Lakeside Drive, based upon the competent, substantial evidence in the staff report and pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and historic preservation requirements. Further, I move to recommend to the Lake Worth Beach City Commission this application and its approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in
Yeah,
favor?
second. No.
Aye.
All in
Aye.
favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the owner. Let's move on to the second project, 513 and 515 Lake Avenue.
Give a moment. Right. Good evening. For the record, I'm Abraham Fogel, Preservation Planner for the City of Lake Worth Beach. Item B is HRPB project number 20-00210003, a distance proximity waiver for the proposed beer and wine sales for on-site consumption as an accessory use to the existing business at 515 Lake Avenue. The structure is located on the south side of Lake Avenue between L&M Street as shown on the location map. It's located in the downtown zoning district and has a future land use of downtown mixed use. Essentially with this request, it would approve a distance waiver that would allow this business to offer beer and wine to enhance certain experiences they already offer, such as sip and paint and drag and draw art classes already offered at this establishment. The existing use again is a art gallery / studio. The original architectural plans are located within the city's property file. Here we can see a property card from the 50s, and it has the general outline of this commercial structure with 2 bays. Here on this slide, we have the original architectural plans and permit. The subject property was constructed circa 1953 in a commercial mid-century modern architectural style. Local prominent architect Edgar Wortman designed the structure at a cost of $21,000. The architectural drawings show a single-story 3-bay commercial building of masonry construction with a flat roof. Character defining features of the structure include a stone veneer on the front facade,
large plate glass storefront windows with jalousie vents at the top, aluminum detailing, and a recessed parapet that accommodated signage. City building records indicate the structure was actually constructed as 2 bays instead of the 3 bays as shown in the architectural drawings. The building has been subject to significant alterations over time, which include interior renovations, awning installation, and additional exterior alterations that remove some of those original architectural features that we saw in the drawings. Additionally, at the February 12, 2020 HRPB meeting, a mural installation was approved on the rear east facade facing South M Street. If we look at the screen to the left, we can see the front facade as seen from Lake, and to the right, there's an aerial view that shows us a little bit more of the back area. Here we have additional photos of the rear. You can see the rear parking area, and also on the right, you can see the wall where the approved mural installation will take place. The applicant is requesting a distance proximity waiver to allow beer and wine sales for on-site consumption as an accessory use to the existing art gallery business. The existing business is named Art Studio Cafe, and the waiver is for other alcoholic beverage establishments, protected land uses, and residential properties located within a 500-foot radius of the subject property. So in section 5.5D, we have standards for review. So a decision on a request for a waiver shall be guided by the following factors. Number 1, whether approval of the waiver will result in 2 or more alcoholic beverage establishments having a license within 500 feet of a protected land use or each other, or within 500 feet of a property zone for residential use. According to our staff analysis, there will be 13 alcoholic beverage establishments having a license within 500 feet of this site. In the next slide, I'll show a map that kind of outlines that. And also, in regards to protected land uses, they are identified as churches, public or private schools, parks, and libraries. Within 500 feet, the city's public library and a church by the Glades are located within that radius. Also, we know there are residential uses along Lake and Lucerne and residential neighborhoods south of Lake Avenue, which would be within that radius. This map illustrates the businesses that are in close proximity to this proposed beer and wine consumption. And our second standard is whether the license is being added to or is a license upgrade of an existing use or to an establishment which is relocating to the subject location. So the proposed beer and wine, as I mentioned, is accessory to the existing art gallery and is going to take place to enhance certain experiences such as the art classes that currently take place there. Number 3, if the property contains a structure which is on the National Register of Historic Places or otherwise has been designated by the city as having historic architectural significance, whether the structure will be preserved or developed as to retain its architectural and historic character. So the subject property is located in the Old Town Local Historic District. It's contributing, but with this application, there are no exterior alterations. The only request before us is the distance waiver for the on-site consumption of beer and wine. Our last standard, whether the waiver promotes the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood and the public. The applicant has provided a justification statement that indicates that the area is richly endowed with bars and restaurants, and that Art Studio Cafe is a social gathering venue for the community. The ability to offer beer and wine will enhance the experience of sip and paint and drag and draw art classes already offered. In the next slide, we have conditions of approval. Staff has added these conditions of approval to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the surrounding neighborhood. That concludes staff presentation. Here in this slide, we do have the conditions of approval. I won't necessarily go through all of them unless you have specific questions, but I've outlined in red. Number 1 has been slightly changed. It originally required the applicant to have a new business license. That has been changed to state that the applicant has to amend their existing license, as this is an accessory use and it's not a standalone use, the beer and wine. And number 7 has also, it's actually been added, not changed, and it to indicate that the active code case on the property shall be resolved and closed prior to the amended business license being issued. If you have additional questions about that code case, I'm happy to answer them. I have additional information on that. But for the most part, that's staff's presentation, and Maria Paz, the business owner, is here with us and can answer any additional questions.
Thank you very much. Does the owner wish to make some comments?
Let me just close out here so we can enable her audio and video. Just a moment. Maria, can you hear us?
You are unmuted by host. I can hear you. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Do you wish to make any additional comments about the application?
Sure, thank you for the opportunity. We're an art gallery and the business is predominantly selling paintings and painting classes and making art. It's an art shows. Art and wine sort of go together, and I've been asked from the neighbors, do you sell wine? For the sip and paint, it's BYOB. So we've been asked and would like to provide a service for our patrons where per se, we have a sip and paint and they get off work. The class attendee doesn't have to go to the wine store or Publix to make the 7 o'clock class, nor do they have to buy a whole entire bottle of wine because they might just need a glass or two to paint on a Friday evening or Saturday evening.
Thank you very much. Has there been any public comment?
I haven't heard any.
No, Mr. Hodges,
Sherry,
or
Jordan and I haven't received any.
okay, so there's no public comment.
There's been no public comment. I haven't received any this evening either.
Okay, then comments by board members. Someone want to step up and start?
I have one question. What comes first, the licensing from us or the licensing from the liquor board?
Are you referring to licensing from the state?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so currently the business has the business license for our gallery / studio. So in this case, Maria Paz would apply to amend it. And we've written into the condition that will include the state licensing for that Sale of beer and wine for on-site consumption. So by the time she amends with us, she already has to have acquired that state license.
Have acquired the license. Has she gone forward with that yet?
Let's ask her.
It's like horse and cart. I don't know.
I just found out about that. I printed the state app and I did walk into the business license at the building department where I always go. And this is where we are today.
Well, beer and wine is not as hard as liquor, obviously.
I have no interest in liquor, limes, vodka.
They
tonic,
are
none of
different
this.
licenses.
It would almost be like the bookseller with
Okay.
wine, beer, no cheap beer, but no overly expensive beer.
Other comments from board members? I'd like to make a comment that if there is no neighborhood opposition, and if there are already 13 establishments within a 500-foot radius, that it doesn't seem like there's any reason not to approve this. That would be my opinion.
I agree with you. This is not really a competition with the hard liquor people. This is just a glass of wine while you're painting.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not our first goal. It's just an accessory.
Yeah.
Or when they need a glass of wine.
Yeah. Again,
we're not a bar. We don't want to be a bar. This is for people who don't want to go to a bar.
Happy to have you on the avenue, and we wish you lots of success.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Okay.
I have a question. Does the applicant have any issues with the conditions of approval that's been presented by the city?
Judith, I cannot hear you.
I said, does the applicant have any issues with conditions of approval that have been presented by the city?
No.
Okay, just want to check.
And I can further clarify, Maria. The first one, we just changed it to be clear that it's not actually a new license. It's just being amended. And number 7, we had spoken yesterday and today about.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I get a motion.
Well, I can make a motion. I move to approve HRPB project number 20-021-00003 with the staff recommending condition and the changes which is here. To waive the provision of alcoholic beverage sales within 500 feet of the place of business of the other alcoholic beverage establishment, protect land uses and residential properties for the existing business R Studio Cafe located in 513 and 515 Lake Avenue based upon the competent substantial evidence provided for the staff report and pursuant to the city Labor Beach Line development regulation.
Motion
I'd like to make a comment,
by,
question.
yes, question.
Chip Guthrie.
Yes, Chip.
If this is approved, I don't believe we could even stand outside and watch them painting the mural on the back of the building. Is that correct, Jordan? Excuse me, or Abraham?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
If this is approved, we wouldn't be able to all stand around with a glass of wine watching the muralist paint the mural on the back of the building.
Don't tell anybody.
We'd have to be inside.
Paper cups, I don't know.
All right, we have a motion by,
Yep.
we have a motion by Mr. Ona and a second by Homer.
Thank you, Chip.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, Maria.
Much
Thank you so
success.
much. Please come by.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next project, 1000 Lake Avenue.
Switch over on PowerPoint.
Abraham, is that yours or Jordan's?
Yes, just a moment. All right. Item C, HRPB project numbers 20-00100082 and 20-01400024, a certificate of appropriateness for exterior alterations and a major site plan approval for the existing commercial structure located at 1000 Lake.
Abraham, can you
Yep.
tell us which of those is for, which number refers to which request?
So our COAs always start with the 00, 100, or 1000, and then the code for our site plans is 0, 14, however many zeros. So the 100 is 0, 100 is always our COAs.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So the application will actually require 2 approvals: the certificate of appropriateness for exterior alterations to the existing structure and a major site plan for the redevelopment of the property's existing parking lot. The subject property is located on the southwest corner of Lake Avenue and North H Street, as indicated in the location map to the left. The zoning is Transit Oriented Development East, TOD-E, and the future land use designation is Transit Oriented Development as well. The subject property is classified as a contributing resource to the Old Town Local Historic District. According to the Florida Master Site File for the property, the building at 1000 Lake is an example of Mediterranean Revival architecture. Construction began on the building known as Lake Worth's Gulfstream Lodge Scottish Rite Temple in May of 1921. Here we can see 2 historic postcards. To the left, we can kind of see the building in full view. To the right, we can kind of see it more in the background of this postcard for the shuffleboard courts in Lake Worth Beach. West Palm Beach architect Bruce Kitchell designed the building, and construction was financed through the selling of 10-year bonds. Locally renowned architect G. Sherman Childs revised Kitchell's plans, and the Kermode Coal Construction Company of South Palm Beach supervised construction. The building was dedicated in April of 1926 with construction costs near $200,000, a very substantial amount for that time. The building suffered extensive damage during the 1928 Okeechobee hurricane, which led to substantial alterations. Here we can see 2 additional historic postcards. The building is not in full view, but as you can see in the red arrows, it's somewhat in the background. And these postcards and also the pictures that we will show in the following slides helped us guide, particularly with the awnings and choices for window replacement. On September 22, 2001, the Old Town Commercial Historic District was added to the National Register of Historic Places. The structure at 1000 Lake is classified as a contributing resource to the Old Town Commercial National Historic District. So it's recognized locally in our local historic district and also nationally in the National Historic District. Again, in these photos to the left, we can see an aerial photo where you can see the building in full view. And in the second photo, it's further to the background. Here, we also have a much older photograph that kind of show us to the rear, and it was very helpful for those corner windows. It was one of the few images that we see the number of lights in those windows. Here we have a property survey. It is showing more than just the subject property. The subject property is on the southeast end, and In these other slides, we can see the existing building. Again, the proposed project seeks to rehabilitate the existing building to approximate it closer to the historic appearance. Many original features were removed, but some remain. The proposed rehabilitation will replicate many of those architectural features and detailing that have been removed over time. As we can see to the right, many of the original commercial bays on the first floor were enclosed, and now they have an arch. And many of the windows have gone through replacement. Also, the building overall lost a few stories. In these other pictures to the left, we can see the building as seen from Lake Avenue. To the right is the building as viewed from the existing parking lot. As you can see, especially the view from the parking lot, you can kind of see the outline of those openings, but they're currently boarded up. If approved, the subject application would allow the rehabilitation of the structure's exterior with new windows, doors, awnings, storefront systems, signage, restuccoing of the building's exterior, installation of new barrel tiles, and that would be in the second photo. You can see that shed roof. It currently has an asphalt shingle that would have barrel tile to match the other barrel tile in the remainder of the building. In addition to that, the existing parking lot will be redeveloped with 24 parking spaces, landscaping, and new lighting. Here we have some more pictures that show the current lot conditions. I've added these so we have a better view from above and also to show the existing parking lot. Proposed site plan. The existing footprint will remain as it is. Currently, the proposed site plan changes include redevelopment of the existing surface lot with 24 parking spaces, and that also entails landscaping, lighting, and the building will have new signage. In the following slides, we will break each of these down. So let's begin with parking. As a contributing resource in the Old Town Local Historic District, changes in use and remodeling of an existing structure are exempt from providing a greater number of off-street parking spaces. The proposed site plan indicates the parking lot will be redeveloped with 24 parking spaces. The parking layout is designed to maximize the number of parking spaces that can be accommodated in the existing parking area. Therefore, the proposal meets the minimum parking requirements by maintaining the existing grandfathered number of parking spaces. And again, at this time, there are no proposed uses or conditional uses. So the parking, they are just maximizing what they can fit in the existing area and maintaining the grandfathered amount that is possible because they are a contributing structure in the city's historic district. Signage. As we can see in this slide, there are 2 signs being proposed. We have one 8 square foot projecting sign on the southeast corner of the building, and one 10 square foot wall sign on the west facade of the building. If you see on the lower left corner, that's where the projecting sign will be located. And to the right of that is the wall sign. As you go through the elevations and rendering, I'll point out again where it is in the building. But both signs will have brushed stainless steel letters and numbers featuring 1000 link. The proposed signage is in compliance with the maximum sign area and the special regulations for projecting signs and wall signs. Proposed landscape plan. The new landscaping will be installed in the redeveloped surface parking lot. Perimeter landscaping will be installed between the surface parking lot and Lake Avenue and abutting properties. Landscape islands will be installed to meet interior landscape requirements for the parking area. Proposed trees include live oaks and silver buttonwood trees. The hedging and overall landscaping will include Simpson stoppers, red-tip cocoa plums, and cabbage palms. Overall, the proposal complies with the city's landscape regulations and tree palette identified in the major thoroughfare design guidelines. Here we have a view of the photometric plan and a light fixture detail. A new light fixture will be installed on the west side of the parking area. The applicant has submitted 3 options for the light fixture design. Staff has added a condition of approval that the new light fixture have an acorn design to match existing light fixtures along Lake Avenue. By utilizing this design option, the proposed lighting is in compliance with the major thoroughfare design guidelines. A master site plan is required for the redevelopment of the parking area. The review criteria is intended to promote safety and minimize negative impacts of the development on its neighbors by establishing qualitative requirements for the parking areas, landscaping, and other site improvements. So essentially, the review criteria is laid out on section 23.2-31C and L.
Okay, could I stop in here for a second and ask our attorney, it appears we have 2 separate requests. Can they be broken and voted upon separately, or do we need to do this all as one?
No, I think it's okay for staff to make a presentation with both of the issues, discussing each of the issues in one presentation, but you can certainly break it up and have 2 separate motions if that is your desire.
Okay. Do we want to check with the board which way they want to go? Or how do we go from here?
I would say let them continue with the presentation because I believe that one enhances the other. So then when we can take them individually at the end, and if there's any reason that the parking area is going to affect the aesthetics of the building, we can address it at that point.
All right.
They seem to combine.
Okay. So
Yeah, I'm for leaving them together for now.
Okay, straw poll is we leave them together for the presentation and perhaps vote on them separately.
Maybe the staff, can you explain me why they had 2 different permits and we don't want what's as a unit? What is the issue to present to?
So the entire scope includes exterior changes to the building. It also requires redevelopment of the parking area. To complete that whole project, you need 2 approvals. Since it is in a historic district, you need to receive the certificate of appropriateness for those exterior alterations to the building. And the site changes, we have certain thresholds in our code, and it triggered a major site plan review. So as we're going through signage, landscaping, parking, lighting, it has gone through our site plan review team. It has gone through a few rounds of review until we arrived at this final site plan, and it was conditioned if there was any remaining concerns.
Thank you.
Can I continue with the staff presentation?
Yes, you're continuing.
Okay. So where we left off is our criteria to review the major site plan. So that criteria is laid out in section 23.2-31. On pages 5 to 9 of our staff report, we go into detail of having a response to each criteria. For now, we found that they have met all the criteria, and we won't necessarily go through each item. If you have any specific questions, we can certainly go back to the staff report. But for now, we'll just keep going. Staff has made the analysis that all the criteria was met as laid out in section 23.2-31. Here we have a view of the existing elevations, and they basically depict what we've seen in the photos, a lot of those original storefronts enclosed, replacement windows, and just some of the openings boarded up. But that just depicts the building as it is now. Here we have the proposed elevations. If we start on the east elevation, it's this on the top, it's the second to the right. On the first floor, 4 enclosed bays will be reopened to construct new storefronts with canvas awnings. 2 pairs of French doors with decorative fan lights will be installed to match the original doors, creating new entrances on North 8th Street, a triplet of arched windows between doors, which are currently enclosed, will be reconstructed. The 2nd-story balcony will be reconstructed and new French doors will be installed. Overall, the larger openings will be replaced with pairs and triplets of single-hung windows with transoms to match the historic windows as shown in the photographs and postcards. 1 single-hung window will be installed on the corner to match the original window appearance. The smaller window openings will utilize fixed glass with divided light patterns to replicate the original casement windows. The existing barrel tile roof will remain along the building's parapet. So as we look through the north elevation, the top left, again, those larger openings have triplets of single hungs. Then single openings just have 1 single hung window. The smaller openings are going to have that fixed glass with decorative divided light patterns to replicate casement windows. On the bottom left, we have the facade that will front Lake Avenue. Again, those storefront bays will be reopened and we will get those storefronts back with awnings. We'll have a pair of French doors with skylights providing an entrance from Lake Avenue. The larger openings have pairs or triplets of windows. And on the west elevation, on the bottom right, we can also see those openings, the larger openings with triplets of single hung windows. And as I had previously mentioned, that shed roof on the first floor currently has asphalt shingle. They're going to go back with the barrel tile to match the barrel tile already on the building. Here we have a closer look at the window and door schedule. As I previously mentioned, due to many alterations over time, some of those character defining features were removed, such as window and storefront configurations. So based on the photos, postcards, some of those are being brought back, and also some of the original windows, such as those fan lights, are still there and they'll be replicated. So we have a reference of what they look like. Worth mentioning, the smaller windows 1 and 8, we have added a condition of approval that they will have the appearance of an 8-light casement. We took a closer look at the windows and we were able to see that that's the divided light pattern those openings originally had. So again, here, this slide just shows some of the material choices for the colors. They're largely based on those postcards, the awning choice, and again, a clay barrel tile on that west elevation. Here we have a rendering of the building seen from Lake Avenue as you're moving towards Dixie. You can see on the west elevation, 1000 Lake, that's the wall sign they are proposing. Here we do see some murals illustrated. That is currently not part of the approval. It's just there for illustration purposes. Here we can see a view from the corner of North 8th Street and Lake Avenue. Again, we can see those storefronts back again, a new entrance from Lake Avenue through those French doors. And this is another rendering. Here you would be across the street from Lake Avenue, and you can see the proposed corner sign that says 1000 Lake. So we mostly covered the major site plan component. There is also the criteria for granting a certificate of appropriateness. So all exterior alterations to structures within a designated historic district are subject to visual compatibility criteria. Staff has reviewed the documentation and materials provided in this application and outlined the applicable guidelines and standards found in the city's historic preservation ordinance. The relevant section here is 23.5-4 K1 and 2. K1 addresses general criteria for granting the COA, and section 2 has additional requirements for exterior alterations. A detailed response was provided on page 10 to 13 of the staff report, and it is staff analysis that they have met all the criteria. In conclusion, the proposed request for a certificate of appropriateness in major site plan is consistent with the purpose, intent, and requirements of the comprehensive plan underlying zoning district and surrounding areas. Subject, of course, to the attached staff conditions of approval. The rehabilitation of the building will revitalize a contributing resource within the Old Town Local Historic District and restore elements of the original architectural design that once characterized the property. In the following slides, we have provided all the conditions of approval. They are located on page 14 and 15 of the staff report. If you have any questions on any of the conditions of approval, I'm happy to answer them. They include conditions for planning, historic preservation, as well as some of the other departments that reviewed the site plan, such as fire and utilities. In addition, the applicant is here with us and the owner, and they're able to answer any additional questions, and that concludes staff presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we get presentation by the applicant, please?
So let me just move them so that you're able to speak and be seen. We will have the owner and the architect. On.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
We cannot see you.
Okay.
I can see you.
Yeah, I don't see any button to let me see.
Get rid of this.
Hold on. Unmute.
I can hear
you. Yeah, we can hear and see you.
Yeah. Can you see me now, Abraham?
Yeah, yeah. And we can hear you too.
Okay, great.
Do you?
Is that true for everyone else?
Yes, I can see you.
I can see you and hear you, Judy.
Juan, just let me know. We have the full plan set backup if you want us to go to any sheet.
Yes. If you could go first to the overall site plan.
Okay, so for that, maybe if you need me to zoom in, then I'll open the actual plan set. Does that work?
Right. Yeah, that would work. The plan set, it started, obviously the building we wanted to keep as much as we could, or keep it intact for what its purpose may be due to the historic significance of the building. And the idea was really to bring it back and somehow make the parking lot as useful as possible for this building. One of the things that, I mean, it was pretty tough to squeeze in as many things as we had to, especially with getting in the refuse and also getting in handicap parking spots and the fire department, which dictated quite a few things. So having 24 spots there, we thought would be, with landscaping, would be a big addition to the downtown core and especially to the building and people going into it. As you've seen, if you can go, Abraham, to the 3D that goes to the back side of it that shows some of the murals. Yeah, as you come down Lake, what's interesting is that the back side of it will have an entrance as well, which we believe would be prominent because the cars drive that way. So that will be a entrance right at the green awning that you see there. We'd work with staff, and part of animating the building a little bit was getting some of the murals that you do see around town, and it would give it sort of a boost in terms of the facade and some of the things it had there. There will also be a 1000 Lake sign there, we thought was important. And as you come around, if you can go to the next slide, please, 3D. Yeah, as you come around it, we foresee that the retail or dining that may go in there would be something that would also kind of animate the street in terms of having seats on the street for dining or reading, this type of thing. The building itself, there were some questions about the archways that had been there, and the archways were actually just stuccoed. They had no real significance, and they didn't have historical significance. And as they were kind of cleaning up the building on the inside, we realized that none of those arches ever existed. I think someone wanted to just make the building a little more interesting at one point when it was not so interesting. And it sat kind of decrepit for a long time. So we went back, worked with staff, and a lot of the images that were original to the building itself, and pretty much went back to everything we could historic on the palette that we were given for this building. Could you go to the last slide, please? The 3D? Yeah. Some of the challenges were, there's a lot more challenges on the inside of the building as well after this, but the building itself structurally is, there were some very frail parts of it. There were some stronger parts of it. A lot of it really has to be refurbished to make what you see here. And it really drove quite a bit of the cost up. So the building itself, I mean, how it stands, we believe would be the best solution at this point, because I guess economically it would be something that we had tried another scheme with the 4 stories, and it would just almost have to tear down the building structurally to make the other 2 stories work. So here we have it, and I think the historic building, the way that it's been designed now, would be a welcome addition to the downtown, and it would add a lot to that historic district as businesses are sort of flourishing in that area. That's it.
Thank you. That's Mr. Conton, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. I guess first, if we would ask for public comment, I don't know that there's any public comment available. Is that true? Keith Sullivan?
None. Jordan and I didn't receive any. Sherry, did you receive any?
No, I haven't received any comments on this project.
All right. Well, then let's go to questions from board members for Mr. Conton.
I got one question. Who are you planning to put in there?
Well, the first floor would be retail, and the second floor would be an office type of space.
Could you have a restaurant or anything that's going to pull people from over across Dixie?
Well, the restaurant would be great. There have been ideas about a restaurant and also sort of a food court like Grandview, where you have several different restaurants in a space and people can pick and choose and create a type of organic food court type of business. But these things have to materialize, and then obviously we would love dining there. That would be the big thing. But these things need to materialize, and also they have to be economically viable. If we got somebody like that, that would be the core to get to it.
I guess what I'm asking, are you doing the restaurant preparation or anything like that when you're doing the building, or is that later?
Yes, well, yes, we are doing a grease trap. We're doing basically making it available for the garbage to be put out toward the back that would handle a restaurant type of operation. Yes, the answer is yes. We just don't have anybody signed up for it yet.
No, I get that, but the possibilities there.
Yeah.
Other questions from board members? Mr. Dorinzo?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm good. Questions answered.
Okay, Mr. Guthrie?
I would just like to comment that when I was a member of the CRA, this 1,000 building was supposed to really kind of start some renovation and some excitement west of Dixie, moving towards the railroad tracks. I'm a little surprised to see that they're requiring so much parking, because this is in that transit-oriented development area. So conceptually, we're going to have eventually a train station within about a block of this structure. So if it would be very it would be a good thing if a restaurant were there, because then people could come and visit, and as they're going toward downtown, or even the Arts Lofts or the Hatch or things like that, this would all be in that area. So I think it's a real welcome addition to the west side of Dixie. And, really, and from my conversation with Mr. Compton, this is not going to be one of those situations where if we approve it, it's going to languish. I believe that we're going to see something happen fairly quickly with it. And it's good to see that he worked with staff, and staff has come up. My comment originally when I was talking to Mr. Compton was that those archways have been there for so long. I thought that they were part of the building, but it became obvious when you started looking at the pictures from the original structure that they're not. So generally speaking, I think it's a great thing. I wish we had tenants biting at the bullet to get in there, but you gotta start somewhere.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Guthrie. Judith Fox, Ms. Fox?
I just see, I guess on my screen where the owner of this building wants to say something. Can we bring it in?
I think he was given, let me just check here.
Bashir or some,
Bhavin is the owner. Let me just check here, just a second.
If he's the owner, he might as well say something.
Can you guys hear me?
I think he's a panelist, so he should be able to unmute. And yeah, so he has the ability to, okay, Bhavin, we see you.
Do you mind if I say a couple of words? I might have some specific answers for Judy, if that's all right, as well as Chip. Juan has obviously been very involved on the architectural side of this. I've been having some discussions with prospective tenants with respect to the building. The restaurant idea that both of you noted is actually very thoughtful, and hopefully we're in the right direction, having also thought about that. We are in discussions with one group who wants to essentially build on the ground level a Grandview Market type of approach. We are in lease discussions with them right now. We verified their financial ability to actually build this out. And they would also, I don't know how many of you have actually had a pleasure to see this building. This building, the thing that attracted us to it, away from what this could become, is that it also has a full basement. And it's one of the very few buildings in this part of Palm Beach County that actually has a full basement. And the group that we're talking to has some fairly interesting uses for that part of the building as well, to leverage the concept that they want to create to promote a food market or pop-up food stalls, i.e. a restaurant that could exist downstairs. we would really like to promote more traffic in this area. One of the things that excited us about us is that outside the transit-oriented development, the fact that this side of Dixie got a little bit less traffic when we think that it has the potential to get a lot more. And our goal was to try to spur that by adding some interesting, not just retail, because anybody can put in retail, some interesting retail that would actually bring people to this part of town. So we are in active discussions with 2 prospective tenants. We're having discussions around specific lease terms right now, as well as a couple of people that might be interested in smaller retail orientations around the side of Lake Avenue or off of the back of 8th Street, right behind City Hall. So we could have as many as 3 retail opportunities on the ground floor, with the biggest one being the restaurant concept that we're talking about if it were to materialize. I hope that answers some of the questions you had.
Thank you. A question to the rest. Is this not across the street from that restaurant that did the artwork that we were talking about last month?
Yes,
Yes.
921 Lake Avenue is pretty much across the street.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as you guys are also probably aware, across the street, just slightly to the west, the Padron parking lot is building the Bohemian apartment building. And that apartment building will also have I think a food and retail component to it. I believe from the renderings I've seen, they're envisioning a coffee shop or potentially a restaurant type of concept there as well.
Thank you.
Other questions to the applicant from board members?
Yes, first, welcome to Lake Worth. You made the right choice. We had the best city in South Florida, and we are ready to work with somebody who have a good ideas and the money. And I have a question. I don't know the staff. What is the schedule about the work? Because I have in planning number 4, they said the temporary parking phase number 2 are shall not extend more than periods beyond the 5 years. What does it mean? I mean, the park.
Go back to Juan, if you want to explain a little bit. Wait, let me go back to the site plan. A little bit of that phasing for the parking area.
Yeah, it was just an interesting setup because we are on a major thoroughfare, and for construction, Mr. Shah wants to get construction going as soon as possible. And the idea was to use the parking area as a launch for the construction equipment and for deliveries while the building is under construction. So we don't have to lock up 8th Street or Lake Avenue.
Yeah. But
what's on the other side of that parking lot?
It's another parking lot, but it's not ours.
Okay,
it's a nice staging area for construction. And it would be part of the construction phasing plan. That's part of the major site plan.
All right. Thank you.
Okay,
I have a question.
Yes.
Can we go back to the rendering?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Can you go back to the rendering, the one that was up before the photo?
This one or the other ones?
The next one. Those 2 arched windows on the 2nd floor in the corner, is the window actually arched, or is that just like a faux arch?
No, the window would be arched.
Would you consider?
No, I think we're talking about the corner where you have the stucco arch relief. If you look top to the right, you can see it has a stucco relief over that single hung window.
Oh,
that's the one on the corner of Lake, on the corner of Lake, right?
Now, if we go back a little bit,
yeah,
I have to go to the postcard.
Yeah, you can kind of see in the corner how they were originally designed that way. It has that stucco relief.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah, that's the one. The other ones, there are some other ones that are a little bit north, and they're like in a 3-part system.
Yes, we actually have I think the best view is probably the window and door schedule.
Yes,
Number 5.
yep, exactly. And
Yeah.
those will be full lights up on top. And then you'll see there's a lower one, which is a larger one that has a rounded piece. And those are actually glass as well.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought it looked a little funky having a square awning over a arched window. Okay.
I'd like
Okay.
to go back to Ozzy's question about time frame, because I know we're in a money crunch here. If you get approval on all this, are we going to start construction?
The idea is yes, and I think you could also ask the owner. He's on this meeting. I think if Bobbin would like to respond, it would be good.
Yeah, so that's a great question. We do want to get construction started as soon as possible for 2 reasons. One is I'd love for there to be some investment return to this investment that we're making. But secondly, we also have a very tight timeline with the CRA. The CRA, we negotiated, as you are aware, a deal to buy this building from the CRA. When we bought this building, it had been uninhabited for almost 9 years. It had been everything from a halfway house to a bowling alley to a dance floor to whatever it might be, and a haunted house as well at one point. When we got it, obviously there were a lot of surprises, none which were positive. But long story short, we are committed to a very specific timeline to get a CO, which means construction's got to start, which means everything's got to happen. And if we don't complete the construction and get a CO in a certain time frame, and I'm happy to share with you that development time frame. I'll just pull it up on my computer while we're talking. But if we don't do it, the CRA retains the ability to take the building back from me at the cost I bought it for, which obviously would be very unfortunate because at that point in time, I would have put a lot more money into it. And I'm not here to take a loss on my investment. So I'm incented to get this moving and get the economic development moving to this area. And the other thing I've committed to the CRA is also that at a minimum, this building would have 15 employees working in it by the time we occupy it with tenants. And my goal is to get more than 15. If you're aware, we bought another building a little while ago on the other side of the street facing Lucerne, 1013 Lucerne. We had similar arrangements to staff 10, 15 people there. We've ended up staffing a lot more than that. So we like this part of town. We see a lot of potential in this part of town. We like the fact that there's a historic component here and there's a chance to bring some livelihood and vibrancy back into this area of town. And we're excited to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Other comments from other board members or other questions?
I would just like to state the obvious. If we don't approve it, there will be no construction, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
If I could just make one more, can I make one more clarifying comment to that point? Is that okay? Is that protocol?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I would also state that I appreciate the fact that without approval, nothing will happen, but also that one thing that we're asking for is dependent on the other thing that we're asking for. So having a parking lot but no building makes no sense, and having a building without parking makes no sense. So while they're separate, they're also together, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That was going to be my comment. To the owner, what is the deadline?
If you give me 10 seconds, I'm just pulling it up. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
It's really soon.
June 20th, I think.
It'll be my intention to, unless anybody has a problem, to go ahead and combine these into one motion. Is that appropriate? Does anybody have objection to that?
I object, yes. I think these need to be delivered separately. And I've not put my comments in yet, so I have some very major concerns about this project. And I think I need to give a little background. I'm sure the CRA will say that it's irrelevant. I think that on the other hand, it's very relevant to this. The CRA back in 2015-16 paid somewhere around $2 million for this property. And Chip, you may have been there when they did that. And they turned around and sold this to the current owner for $300,000, which means there's $1,700,000 or some number that is my tax dollars that have gone into this building. My tax dollars, my incremental tax base that the CRA has been using. And I think because of that, we deserve a bit more than just the bare minimum. I think what we're showing is a bare minimum. It is, to use a horrible phrase, is like putting lipstick on a pig. This building was a major building with lots and lots of history in the city. It was the head of the Masonic Lodge for many years. I don't think that what the owner is showing us is answering the goals of the CRA. And if the CRA says this isn't their building, this is the owner's building, this is the applicant's building, well, look at the CRA website. This building is prominently mentioned and prominently shown, these photos, at the top of their website as something that they are very proud that is going ahead. If in fact it's going ahead, you know, the goals of the CRA are to prevent and eliminate blighted area, blighted conditions in the community. Well, we don't even have a tenant here. We have an owner that's had 2 years to put this together and hasn't. This building, from an architectural, as a board member, we're not supposed to be looking at issues of where the building came from, but this building, as proposed, does not conform to its neighbors in regarding to height, bulk, massing, the kinds of things that we as a board are supposed to be looking at. This building was a backdrop building for the City Hall and all of those photos that you've seen. Can you put those photos back on?
Go back to the historic photos. And just letting you know, Joan is on the call, so if you want to direct any questions to
Okay,
her,
thank
do
you. Yeah, can you go back to some of those postcard photos?
Yeah, just a second. My screen froze a little bit. I'm just gonna open and close this PowerPoint. Just a moment. Okay. So let's go back to the postcards. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can see that this was a major building in town, and it stayed at 4 floors until, I think, 1972. You know, the COA that they are requesting, and I really would like to have these things separated, the COA separated from the major site plan review. The COA requires that we have regard for the setback, for the height, the mass, the bulk, the site organization. This was a major building in town, and to just allow just the first 2 floors to be redone is not helping that neighborhood. If you all remember, we have a 5-story Bohemian project coming up, which is just a few hundred feet from this building. We have the 4-story ecological building across the way. We have the 4-story City Hall building. To allow this in this up and coming area to remain at just 2 stories and a little bit of 3-story, I think is abdicating our position as board members to make sure that the building works with its neighborhood. I think it fails to, as shown, it fails to hold its own against, and this photo is perfect, to hold its own against the auditorium building, against the new Bohemian. So I have some real concerns about this. This is a mediocre solution, and mediocrity is, I think, not sufficient for this site. especially when we as a city have already paid $1.7 million of our own tax monies to have something really spectacular done with this site. Thank you.
May I say something? Is it possible?
Who's speaking?
This is Bhavin Paul.
Yep, Bhavin.
Thank you. So first of all, just because the city paid the money they paid does not mean that this building is worth that much. I've spent 2 times the amount of money that I bought the building for from the CRA to date. Happy to share with you guys all the detail if you like. The cost of development of this building is not cheap. And if you draw these types of conclusions, the 4-story building existed decades ago. For the last 10, 15, 20 years, it's been a 2.5-story building. And for the last 10 years, there's been nothing in it. Even the information that the CRA received prior to selling the building to us, there was a cost to rehab the building. And I'm sure the CRA would be more than happy to share it with you, of over $3 to $4 million just to rehab the exterior and the interior of the building and leave it as is. So for somebody to say that we're taking the shortcut, honestly, is personally offensive to me, because I'm spending a lot of money here. I have already spent millions of dollars in the city of Lake Worth creating jobs and developing. And honestly, Mr. Chair, I'm a little bit surprised at your comments, because when we met several times in person between December and January of 2019, in which you actually presented me with drawings of what you would like to see happen to this building, and you actually presented me with how you'd like to get involved, you sent me an email, and I quote you specifically, and I'm going to read this word for word from the email you sent me. The preservation planner confirms that the building is a contributing structure in the Old Town Historic District and eligible for federal tax credits. Unfortunately, other information shows potential structural issues affecting any restoration to 3 or 4 floors. That was from you specifically. So now you're telling me that you want to see something more when you specifically 2 years ago or a year ago said that 3 or 4 floors was not possible here. So I'm trying to understand the agenda here.
I did not say that it was not possible. I said that there are structural issues.
Please finish.
That's a big difference. Now, what did you originally plan for this property when you purchased it from the CRA? What did you give the CRA?
May I answer the question now? I plan to restore the building such that I would be able to meet my requirements to the CRA of at minimum employing 15 people in that facility and bringing business to the town. My goal is to spur economic development, not just to build a fancy building where there's going to be no use for it and spend incredible amounts of money. If I'm building from a blank slate, like the Bohemian people with a Padron parking lot on which they're building, that's a totally different development plan than tearing down a building, restoring it completely, or spending millions and millions of dollars to create a 4-story building. I would ask you all to go back and look at the prices at which the Gulfstream Hotel sold. In 2005, the Gulfstream Hotel sold for over $13 million. Does that mean that somebody who buys it today, which they have for less than 10, is supposed to restore it back to where it was 100 years ago?
I have a question. When did the CRA buy that building?
I believe Joan's on the phone, but I'm happy to.
I am.
Go ahead, Joan.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. For point of clarification, the CRA bought this building in 2018 and we paid $850,000 for it, not 1.7 million.
And I think that if the CRA purchases the building and the price that they pay for it is a CRA decision, and an owner that comes later should not be held to some sort of standard because of what the CRA did or didn't do, whether or not it was a good decision to pay that much for it, really has nothing to do with the new owner. And I don't think it should be some sort of a punishment for a new owner to come in and based on the CRA's purchase price have to sink a certain amount of money in.
No, and you can't throw the Gulfstream into this thing. This is a separate building. This is the other side of Dixie, and we're trying to pull traffic in there. So if it's been a 2-story building for how many years, what are we going to do? Add 2 stories to it?
Bring it back to, remember, this is the Historic Preservation Board. We have some good photos and drawings of the building as it was. If, you know, if this is not Washington, DC. This is not a famous building that has been destroyed, but this is a landmark within our own city that is begging to be rebuilt to take part in this neighborhood. Certainly the people at the Bohemian believe in the future of the neighborhood enough to spend the money to put their 5-story building in. I think we are abdicating, as I said, I think we're abdicating our role as the historic board to require that this be compliant with our goals, our objectives, and the CRA's goals and objectives. And that has regard with height, mass, bulk, and the neighborhood. And this,
Tom, I'd like to say
what I'm
something.
looking at does not meet that criterion.
I'd like to weigh in on that. It's Juan Contin, the architect.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was, Mr. Chairman, I was also the chairman of that board that you're sitting on right now. And there's 2 ways to deal with this building, according to the Secretary, Department of Interior. We have 17 buildings throughout the state of Florida and New York that are on the historic register, my firm. And you either go back and take what's there and bring back as much as you can for it to display all the historic components that it has, or you build it back to what it was. In this case.
Now, Mr. Contin, you had drawings that I saw at a CRA meeting just a few months ago where you brought it back to the full 4 stories. Now, what happened to that proposal? That was approved by the CRA, as I remember.
Absolutely, yeah, it did. And what the issue was, all the cost involved, and the fact that it was not going to be feasible to do it, much like you said to Mr. Shaw many years, like 2 years ago. So we're back to the same square that we're going to have a building that's going to sit there for another 20 years because it's not economically feasible to actually finish it.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add to that.
Yes, who's speaking, please?
This is Joan Oliva, CRA Director.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw and Mr. Contin are very correct. And we have several estimates that the CRA has gotten over the years since we bought the building that says that the cost to just do the minimum of what Mr. Bobbin is doing at the moment is somewhere between $2 and $4 million. I can say that when we bought the building, one of the reasons that we thought it was important to get the building at the time was because a group of attorneys, 9 attorneys, had bought this building and they let it sit on the site that it is for many, many years with all the windows open. It was covered inside and outside with rats and birds and pigeons, and the entire inside of the building was completely ruined. And so for us to get somebody who would like to invest millions of dollars in a building that is really not going to have that much return for several, more than several years, probably decades, is very exciting to us. And the Bohemian is a great project, but it's also subsidized by the city and the CRA to build it. And I think that this 2.5 story building sits and complements the building, whether it be the ones next door, which are only 1 story, or City Hall, which is only three stories right across the street.
4 stories. I mean, I'm embarrassed for the CRA board. It's a bait and switch. You had a wonderful 4-story version that you approved, and now you're letting this go off as a 2-story project. You're sort of taking what you can get.
That is not true.
Other comments from board members?
Chip Guthrie.
Yeah, Chip.
I know that just in my experience when I was on the CRA board for approximately 5 years, I was a part of the modification of the roofing structure in order to save the building, and actually did tour the building when it was in probably the worst shape it could possibly be. And while I was on the CRA, we had flooding problems in the basement. There's mold issues up above. The pigeon and just the disarray and inside the building was terrible, and the amount of money we had to spend on the roof to bring it back just to preserve what was left. If not, that entire building would be probably demolished by now because of the state of disrepair it was in. So I do know that once the roof was on, we, as the CRA board, were very intent and had tons of people looking at it to buy it, and it just was not feasible at the time. When I heard that this proposal that came up, and it's actually somebody's actually going to be putting some money to this, I felt like we were doing what the CRA and the city wanted to do with it, bring it back as much as it possibly can. Whether it's 4 stories or the 2 stories that it is now, the fact that something is being built there and can expand on our downtown and get it going toward the tracks is, to me, tantamount. And the fact that he's going to build immediately and has a deadline on it, this will be a viable building and contributing structure with employees. I don't see any real problem with that.
Okay, other comments from, let's,
Well, the same
can we
thing.
close the,
Closing.
let's close the public hearing and enter the executive session. Discussion by board only. Other board members have thoughts?
Hi.
Go on, Ozzy.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Ozzy. Mhm.
Okay, well, the same thing. We talk about this building. I was a CRA board member with Chief at the same time, because the problem in here in Lake Beach as a city, we have a problem attracting some developers or some money or some people can invest in the city. But at the same time, like a chairman said, we had to be a little bit more choosy, more selective. And I regret if somebody present these plans and start, I don't know, attacking or presenting some strong objection of the chairman. We are a board of volunteers. We don't make any money here. We main objective is to serve the city. We don't have any special objective economic situation. The more is we really want to help the city move forward. That's why sometimes don't get to personally attacking as a board. We have to really, we just representatives of the whole city. And I know we are not well prepared sometimes, but we have good intentions. And like I said, I work very close with Ms. Oliva, the director of the CRA. She has always good ideas. She always do the homework. And but at the same time, we have to be careful. We have to accept the comments that Williams is doing. It's not like he don't have any special interest. The interest is protect the city, move forward in the good way. But on the other hand, we had to be kind of very flexible, because this corner was sitting there for years. Even initially, when I was in the board of the CRA, we were thinking maybe we can rebuild or something and move the CRA headquarters to that building. Any ideas we can throw to just to keep moving, doing something. And I know as the project that present us is just the parking lot with a shell. The shell they can, assuming or hoping they can be turned well, but I don't know. There's the only, I guess the only possibility we have now. If we reject this possibility, where are we going? We'll be waiting another, I don't know, we had to wait another years to come with another owner, another different ideas. Yeah. And I know we have had to be a little bit more flexible on both sides. and accept this project as a shell with good intentions, and let's hope for the best. Let's hope. I get it's supposed to be the planners. We have to plan the future, but where the situation is, this is my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose.
Bill,
Other-
I understand where you're going with wanting the historical preservation and going back to the 4 stories and everything. What I'm looking at right now seems to be historically correct, although it isn't exactly correct with the original. I think it's a compromise, and that it's historically correct aesthetically, even though it's not historically correct as it was. You know, and at some point or other, we've got to make our town historically correct like it should be. And I don't see any problem with this. That's just my opinion.
Right.
Other people, Dorinzo?
I'm all right, Mr. Felkamp.
All right. Any other comments, or do I hear a motion?
Could I entertain a motion?
Sure.
I move to approve HRPB project number 20-001-00082 and 20-014-00024 with staff recommended conditions for a certificate of appropriateness for the exterior alterations to the existing structure and major site plan approval for the redevelopment of the surface parking lot at 1000 Lake Avenue based upon the competent substantial evidence of the staff report and pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and historic preservation requirements.
I second it.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Nay. Motion carries, what is it, 5-1, 4-1? Secretary, is it 4-1 or 5-1?
4-1.
There I am. It is 5-1.
All right. All right, let's move on to 327 North Lakeside Drive. Can we get a,
Just one moment while we load up that PowerPoint and this will be presented by.
Pardon, thank you for these papers.
No me gustó la espina.
No.
All right. One second, folks, I apologize.
We pass 4-1.
All right, folks, I apologize about that. Okay, so again, this, for the record, this is Jordan Hodges. I'll be presenting item D for you this evening. And item D is a consideration of a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a new 109 square foot addition, a variance from base flood elevation requirements of the Florida Building Code, and 3 historic waivers for minimum required side setback, maximum building lot coverage, and floor area ratio limitations in the single family residence at 327 North Lakeside Drive. Okay, like I was saying, for the addition, the application will require, again, the base flood elevation variance, a certificate of appropriateness for the residential addition and exterior alterations, and 3 individual historic waivers. Okay. So the subject property is a 50 by 135 square foot platted lot of record located on the west side of North Lakeside Drive between 3rd and 4th Avenue North. The property is located in the single family residential zoning district and retains a future land use designation of single family residential. Per documentation within the city's property files, the structure was constructed as a single family residence around 1912. A property appraiser's card, which you see before you from 1943, indicates that the structure was designed with a concrete foundation, wood and stucco exterior walls, a gable roof, and wood windows and doors. A rear accessory structure was also captured in the 1943 assessment of the property, which featured wood and stucco exterior walls, and a gable and a shed roof. So in 1946, the owner of the property applied for a City of Lake Worth Beach building permit, or a City of Lake Worth building permit, to raise the roof of the residence by creating a broad projecting 2nd-story dormer that spanned the depth of the house. And you can see those drawings in front of you. The 1946 section and plan drawings indicate that the new 2nd story accommodated 4 bedrooms, an open stair hall, and a small bathroom. Later in 1947, permit records and plan and elevation drawings indicate that a 2-vehicle frame garage was added to the existing rear accessory structure. So this is a current survey of the property, illustrating the location and footprints of the historic structures. And as you can see, there's also a new in-ground pool installed between the primary structure and the rear accessory structure. This is a current view of the property near the southeast corner of the parcel. And if you remember from back in the 1946 architectural drawings, a few slides back, this photo clearly illustrates that broad dormer that was installed, creating the full 2nd story. So if you try to picture that building without that broad without that 2nd story, it has the massing and characteristics of one of our bungalow structures that were common for that time period. So this is the current south facade of the structure where the addition is proposed. And as you can see, there's currently a small covered side entry door and multiple windows on that facade. The applicant has submitted elevation drawings of all the existing facades. And as you can see on the bottom left, that is the subject facade where the addition is proposed. But the house is nicely proportioned, somewhat symmetrical, but you can definitely see, the added dormers in that 2nd story addition. So this is the proposed site plan illustrating the location of the 109 square foot addition. Now it is a 2-story addition, so it does look very small on plan, but you can see where the paver walkways in the front lead up to a set of stairs, and then you have the addition. These are the floor plans and a section drawing of the proposed addition. And as you can see, it includes a very small bathroom on the 1st floor and a larger bathroom on the 2nd floor. The 1st floor also features a secondary entry and a shallow covered porch. And these are the elevation drawings illustrating that proposed addition. As you can see, the addition is 2 stories. And the first story, again, includes that covered porch with a side entry door, and a second story spans the full width of the addition. The addition features similar exterior cladding materials as the historic structure, including stucco exterior walls, hung windows with matching divided light patterns, and a tile roof. Okay, so as evident in the site data table, the proposal is in conflict with the south side setback limitation, the maximum building coverage limitation, and the floor area ratio limitation set within section 23.3-7 of the Lake Worth Beach Land Development Regulations. The applicant has requested relief from these code limitations by applying for 3 individual historic waivers, and we'll get to those waivers in just a moment. The proposal also does not comply with the base flood elevation requirements established within the Florida Building Code. The applicant has applied for a variance from the base flood elevation requirements of the Florida Building Code per section 23.7-7 of the Lake Worth Beach Land Development Regulations. Okay, so the applicant is proposing an addition that will match the finished floor elevation of the existing historic structure, which is at around 7.7 feet NAVD. The existing Federal Emergency Management Agency flood map indicates that the property is located in Zone AE, which would require a base flood elevation of 8 feet for finished floors. The Florida Building Code additionally requires finished floors to be constructed at 12 inches above the base flood elevation. Therefore, the required slab elevation for the proposed addition or any new construction on that parcel is at 9 feet.
Wow.
So the Florida Building Code does allow one exception for variances to base flood elevation requirements, and that is for designated historic structures or buildings that are determined to be eligible for listing by the Florida State Historic Preservation Officer. Because the subject property is a contributing resource to the Old Lucerne Local Historic District, which was designated by a municipal ordinance, the proposed addition is eligible for an exemption from the Florida Building Code to allow substantial improvements and/or alterations that do not meet the current flood-resistant construction requirements. Although this proposal does meet the criteria for an exemption within the Florida Building Code, the City of Lake Worth Beach Land Development Regulations require that applicants seeking to utilize this exemption also apply for a formal variance from the Historic Resources Preservation Board, which is an additional safeguard. Per section 23.7-7, variances for base flood elevation requirements should only be granted if the improvement will not preclude the building's continued designation as a historic building, and the variance is the minimum necessary to preserve the historic character and design of the building. So it is the analysis of staff that the proposed addition would not preclude the continuation of the structure's contributing designation, as the addition's massing, height, design, fenestration pattern, and use of building materials is generally compatible with the existing historic resource. It is also the analysis of staff that the variance requested is the minimum variance required for an addition to preserve the existing characteristics of the structure. Pursuant to City of Lake Worth Beach LDR section 23.7-7 G2, variances to flood-resistant construction requirements do have their own specific variance criteria, and staff provided detailed responses to the criterion on page 6 of your staff reports. And the applicant also provided responses to these criterion, which were provided as attachment D. It is the analysis of staff that complying with the strict interpretation of the Florida Building Code could result in a disruption to the structure's historic and architectural appearance. An addition built below the required base flood elevation will not increase flood heights, cause additional threats to public safety, public expense, or create a nuisance. The variance is also the minimum necessary to allow the addition to maintain the same finished floor elevation and the exterior appearance of the existing structure. If you'd like to go through all of the variance criteria and staff's answers individually, we can certainly do that. But as I mentioned, all of those responses are included on page 6 of the staff report, and the applicant responses are in attachment D. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. If you want to go back and go through these at any point in time, just let me know.
I think we can move on.
Okay. So for the certificate of appropriateness, all additions and exterior alterations to structures within a designated historic district are subject to visual compatibility criteria. Staff has reviewed the documentation and materials provided in this application and outlined the applicable guidelines and standards found within the city's historic preservation ordinance. Staff's review and responses for all of these guidelines and standards are included on pages 7 through 10 of your staff reports. The city's historic preservation design guidelines also list specific recommendations for granting certificates of appropriateness for additions. The application is generally compliant. The addition is located to the side of the structure, and its construction will not result in the loss of significant character defining features. The addition is designed with an appropriate fenestration pattern and utilizes doors and windows at regular intervals to avoid blank facade. The addition also features a small covered side entry porch, which is relatively common amongst similarly designed structures in the surrounding district. Just generally in historic preservation, we'll just give a brief analysis. But the proposed addition is set back around 15 feet from the front facade of the existing structure, and the addition only measures about 5 feet 5 inches wide. The increased front setback and relatively narrow width results in an addition that is secondary and subordinate to the historic structure when viewed from North Lakeside Drive. The addition is appropriately located to the side of a structure, and its construction, again, will not result in the loss of significant character-defining features. The addition, again, has an appropriate fenestration pattern and uses similar design materials. And again, materially, the addition utilizes stucco exterior walls, a simulated barreled concrete tile roof to match the design features of the existing historic roof. But staff does have some remaining concerns regarding the proposed door for the addition and the proposed replacement for the front door. The applicant has selected fiberglass raised panel doors with decorative leaded glass inserts. Due to the existing building materials, documentation within the city's property file, and similarly styled structures within the districts that retain their original architectural features retain their original doors, staff does recommend that the applicant utilize a style of entry door found in either the frame vernacular or the bungalow portion on door replacement in the design guidelines. The proposed doors utilize highly ornate leaded glass inserts that were not utilized on simple residential structures in South Florida when this building was erected, or when the building received substantial alterations in the 1940s. They are generally not compatible with the styles of doors representative in the design guidelines. Staff recommends, again, that the applicant utilize a style of entry door found in the frame vernacular or bungalow portions of the design guidelines. These doors include 10 and 15 light French doors, 4 and 6 light doors with recessed panels, or craftsman style bungalow doors with varying light sizes and panel configurations. These types of doors are widely available, and there are multiple styles of doors that could be approved that would be compatible with this architectural style. And just kind of generally, doors play an important role and are a character defining feature for historic structures, even if they're not original. The applicant's variance and historic waiver requests are also all contingent on the building's contributing status continuing status as a contributing resource, and therefore selecting a door that is compatible with the architectural style and the examples provided within the historic preservation design guidelines is very important. Staff has added a condition of approval for the certificate of appropriateness regarding door replacement. So to move on to the historic waivers, as illustrated in the land development code requirements analysis, the proposed addition will increase the property's building lot coverage and floor area ratio above the allowable code limitations for the single-family residential zoning district. The placement of the addition will also encroach into the side setback about 6 inches. So if you look at the chart, it is a 6-inch encroachment into the south side setback. Additionally, for maximum building lot coverage, you have a 35% maximum. They're at 36.1, and floor area ratio is 0.5. What they're proposing is 0.53. So small overages, but they are overages. So the City of Lake Worth Beach LDR section 23.5-4R, which is entitled Incentives for Improvements to Designated Landmark and Contributing Properties. Again, this is a type of relief only provided to contributing building or landmark buildings in historic districts. So the HRPB may waive or modify certain land development regulation requirements. Waiver or modification may occur concurrently with the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness, which is what's happening now, or upon initial designation of a landmark or historic district. Waivers may include setbacks, lot width, area requirements, height limitations, open space requirements, vehicular parking and circulation requirements, design compatibility requirements, and similar development regulations. So staff has listed each criterion and provided responses for each historic waiver request for the side setback, building lot coverage, and floor area ratio in the staff report on pages 11 through 12. The applicant also did provide responses for these criterion provided as attachment H. And again, due to the building's contributing status to the Old Lucerne District, the application is eligible for this relief should the board determine that the criterion is sufficiently met. Again, similar to the variance, if you'd like to go through all of these individually for each waiver, I know that the board hasn't seen a historic waiver in a while, so if you'd like to look through these, you certainly can. Or if you'd like to ask the applicant questions regarding the criterion or their responses, I'm sure they'd be happy to respond to that. So these are the general criteria. Criteria is A, that the waiver or modification is in harmony with the general appearance and character of a neighborhood or district. And again, staff's provided responses on pages 11 and 12. Criterion B, that the project is designed and arranged in a manner that minimizes aural and visual impact on adjacent properties while affording the owner reasonable use of the land. Criterion C, that the waiver or modification will not injure the area or otherwise be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare. And criterion D, that the waiver or modification is the minimum necessary to allow reasonable use of the property while preserving its historical attributes. Again, we can go through all these criteria if you'd like with me or the applicant.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the applicant?
I do have one more conclusion slide. I'll be quick with it, I promise. Staff does recommend approval with conditions for the request for a certificate of appropriateness for the addition and exterior alterations to the contributing resource. And staff is also recommending approval with conditions for the variance from the base flood elevation requirements for the Florida Building Code. As a contributing resource to the Old Lucerne Local Historic District, the structure meets the eligibility requirements for both applications. It is staff's analysis that the design of the addition utilizing the variance would not preclude the continuation of the structure's continued designation. Again, as a contributing resource to the Old Lucerne District, the structure does meet the eligibility requirements for the historic waivers. But staff does recommend that the board review the waiver criteria, staff analysis, and the applicant responses to determine if the criterion for relief have been sufficiently met. Staff has included multiple conditions of approval for the certificate of appropriateness to increase visual compatibility, and individual conditions for the variance and for each historic waiver. And we can go through those if you'd like, or if you'd like to go ahead and hear from the applicant, we can do that, whichever you'd prefer.
Thank you. Shall we hear from the applicant very briefly?
Yes, please.
All right, go ahead. State your name.
Just a moment, let's.
I'm not hearing anything.
We're working on it. We just moved him to panelist. Should be able to.
All right, how about now? Is this working?
Mr. Murata, yes, you're
All
on.
right, perfect. Very good. I'll run through a couple of things. Staff did a great job of going through everything there, and I appreciate that. I'll make my portion brief, and I'll be happy to answer any questions for you guys. First, it's a unique experience for me to be on this side of the dais on that one. I'd like to thank staff, Jordan, Abraham, and William Waters. They were extremely helpful and spent a lot of time with me going through this. This was not an easy project. And their support on the project mostly is certainly appreciated. Overall, this has been in concept development for a number of years, trying to get something that would fit right and also accomplish these objectives. So pretty happy to see something coming to fruition. So the purpose here is to bring my 108-year-old house up to modern standards by adding 2 bathrooms and moving the laundry room from the far end of the backyard to the inside of the home and eliminate the functional obsolescence of this house. This is a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. And again, as I mentioned, the laundry room's in the back. So everything except for the floodplain came about between the time I had my contract on the house until I closed on it in 2013. Prior to that, the floor area ratios and everything else did not exist. So I was kind of caught in the middle of that. As staff has shown, I'm only asking for very, very small deviations from that. Also in your report, you'll see that in this block, in the 300 block of North Lakeside, homes of this size are certainly not uncommon. Overall, from what I've read, the project seems to have no real resistance from staff other than the choice of the 2 doors. And I want to make sure it's noted, only 1 door is new. That section does have a door on it because we wanted it to look compatible with the rest of the home, to look like a subordinate section. So the front door was something I added on because I decided to get permission for my door choice. However, that is not contingent on the other sections of this project. That is secondary in nature at most. But I do want to point out that those doors, as proposed, are compatible, in my opinion, with the rest of Parrot Cove, which has 2 historic districts in it. In a search of the area, I came up with 69 similar doors, all located in this historic district. And since one of the criteria is compatibility with the surrounding area, I would think such a large number is compatible. In fact, I found less doors that matched what staff is recommending than these particular doors. Because we have a little bit of a limitation here, and I'm not able to hand you out, here they come up on the screen now, thank you. So these were doors that I'd photographed, doing my absolute best to give no further information of the location of the doors other than specifically what they are. So you'll see example after example after example of the doors that I'm requesting. And in fact, some almost looking identical to it, but all of them the same as to what I'm after as examples in this neighborhood. So staff is recommending Craftsman or bungalow doors. This property is neither of those. Further, the multi-panel doors being suggested when matched against the existing facade of this house, which is all 3/1s, would make this place look like a checkerboard. And in my opinion, I don't see how that would be attractive at all and lend to an improvement of what I'm trying to do. There is a picture of the existing door in there too, which is not conforming to it, but was approved when it was installed, I think 10 or 15 years ago by the previous owners. And in this case here, I'd actually prefer to leave the non-conforming door that was previously approved rather than put in one of those full checkerboard panel. Thank you guys for putting that up, that full checkerboard looking door. One of the items on there was about the expense, whether it be 25% more or not. This isn't an issue to save money. In fact, the doors I'm looking to do are substantially more in cost than if I did one of those. I'm going for something that would look very attractive and we thought would add some class to it. In the staff reports, it mentions section of original materials being replaced, that 2 windows are being replaced. I just want to correct that. There is 1 window that is being replaced. That is not an original window. That is one of the windows from the 1940s. If you look at the image just to the right of it, and I think actually in this picture, you can see it just above to the right. Okay, thank you. That image is good. On the left side, you see that tiny little window. That is one of the only 2 original windows from 100 years ago that's left. That window is not being touched and it is remaining. And the last part, for all conditions that the staff is recommending were with how this was designed and presented, with the exception of number 6. So with that part, I'm asking the board to drop condition number 6 and allow me to utilize the high quality, visually pleasing doors that are found in a great number of neighboring homes throughout the historic district and Parrot Cove. So that's what I have to say on that. I'm happy to answer any questions or give any other explanations on this that you'd like.
I thank you. Are there questions from board members to the applicant? I have 2 quick questions. One is, I guess it's partially to city staff. Have we heard from the next door neighbor?
No, we did not get a, we have not received any public comment.
Okay, because that would probably be the only affected party.
If I can add to that as well, there was one image that I had sent in which did not make it into the presentation, and it was a picture from the south side neighbor's driveway, and a little bit of history on that. The south side property used to be the servants' quarters to this part, and it's set really, really far back. There is an entire line of fishtail palms. You can see them in the pictures, but I went over and took a picture from their driveway and all you see is green because you won't see it from that part.
All right. I mean, the important thing is with a variance is you want to make sure that the neighbors are not unhappy with it.
Of course.
The only other thing is a little thing, does the code require, and I can't remember the name for these items, a sort of a grill underneath such that floodwaters can go in and out underneath this?
Oh, a flood vent?
A flood vent, yes. Is there a need or requirement for a flood vent in this case?
I don't believe there is, but that would, we can review that at permitting. That would be something that the city's building official and floodplain administrator would look at.
Mm-hmm.
If I can add to that, Chairman Feldkamp, putting in those is actually something that I've looked into before because this is on an approximate 2 to 3 foot crawl space. And it is something I'd contemplated just to save on the flood insurance on this. So it is something that's on my mind.
Good, 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 good. Yeah, because I think you can save a little money on that.
Agreed.
Good. How do board members feel about the door change? Lorenzo, Mr. Guthrie, Ms. Just.
Beautiful. I don't see anything wrong with it.
Anyone?
Well, hello, Tony. How are you?
I'm doing well, Ozzy. How about yourself?
Listen, I mean, I work at the front of your house at least a couple of times a week when I work. And like for me, as the main concern always is the neighbor. And you have as a neighbor, you ask him or her or the owner of the house how you feel about it, because eventually the owners like you say, even you have all the palms and everything, but eventually the neighborhood is going to look at your property every single day. Did you talk to them and mention to this alteration you're doing it?
Yeah, so I did mention this to our neighbor on the south a while back, and then our neighbor Larry to the north, who's been here since I think he was 6. He's seen, pretty much everything happen over the past 60-something years. We've had some people go by and comment, and I think the general feeling is it's about time you're finally doing something about that place.
Well, and another, that will be the first, my main concern, the neighbor. Another thing, I was checking the floor plans of the bathroom in the first floor.
Yes.
I don't know, it's a new trend. You open your door and you go directly to the bathroom? Or
That's
maybe we're missing the trend, or how is it? Maybe
we call Ozzy, we call that the emergency door. It's when you get home and you just can't get inside fast enough, your first door goes right to the bathroom. But no, it's not a trend. The reason why we did that, and you bring up a good point. As I said, I've been looking at this for years, and I've obsessed over this, and really stagnated on it, trying to find the right way to go. I toyed with having the door point to the back, so it'd be more accessible for the pool. So, people with wet clothes can go in. The reason why we picked having the door, and there are some security concerns as well, which is why we're only doing that little 1/8 up at the top, is to make it look compatible to the home. So it looks like this sort of secondary entrance. The door itself is really not a focal point. It was more to make it aesthetically pleasing, and then has, we'll say, minor utility to it from there. But that will, of course, all be impact glass for security, safety, and noise, and to have a few less windows to do that. And I want to point out one other thing. The reason why this was designed this way is on the ground floor, there's only one bathroom, and that bathroom is in the master bedroom. So as part of that functional obsolescence, when we do have guests here, they have to go through the master bedroom. So this was designed off that to give a proper, more modern and functional access to the bathroom.
Are you, as an owner, you will be comfortable doing this? Because the little porch will be just a porch. I mean, just I don't know, nothing useful.
No, it's not useful. It's entirely aesthetic. Where it came from was the balance to get a laundry facility into that second story. So in order to do that, and we didn't want to jeopardize those windows downstairs, that's where we came from that. It's almost like a little alcove. So it's more decorative than useful. I don't see spending much time out there. Maybe a Halloween, put a pumpkin or a skeleton or something there, but it has no real function other than that. But it allows that second story to bump out so we can still have the same amount of utilized space and fit a little laundry facility in there as well, while all still looking pleasing from the street view.
I think you did it.
There's another issue. I don't know. What happened? You sacrifice the window. I should have put a door to go through this little porch directly to the, I guess it's the living room or someplace.
Yes. So right now, if you were to walk down the second story stairs, you could, continue flowing and go right out that door. But the bathroom is attached to like a living room area, correct?
I think that our job as board members is to be looking at the exterior architectural issues.
Yeah, well, just as a curiosity. Anyways, about the door outside door, this, I personally, like I said, in the neighborhood, I don't have any issue with the doors you selected. I think would be more attractive.
Thank you, Ozzy.
Other board member comments? I have to admit, I do have a problem with that Home Depot looking door.
I agree.
I think there are some bungalow, if you go back to the last slide, there's some bungalow doors and some frame vernacular doors that are much more in keeping with the history of the house. That's my opinion.
And that's fair, and I appreciate your comments. I would take objection though with the Home Depot. These were very expensive doors that you will not find at Home Depot.
I will just say, just on the doors, you know, we can find beveled and leaded and etched glass attractive, and we can like it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's appropriate for an architectural style. So we can tell by the massing, by the materials, that this house probably started its life as a bungalow before the second story addition was put on. So a door appropriate to that time period, as spelled out very clearly in the design guidelines, would be appropriate. There is not any design style within the historic districts and within the design guidelines where etched and leaded glass doors are deemed an appropriate replacement door. They're just not part of our history here in South Florida. And the time our city was developed, those doors were just, or that type of glass was just not in use, and it was not prevalent. Mr. Murata did point out that there are multiple doors within the historic districts that have those, but just because neighboring structures have them doesn't make it compatible with a certain building. I can say that in the over 3 years that I've worked here, we have never permitted a replacement door with a leaded or beveled glass door. So if any of those were installed in the past 3 years, they were done so without a certificate of appropriateness and likely without a permit. And again, this is a contributing building, which if this is approved, it is getting approved with a tremendous amount of relief and 3 historic waivers and a variance. So this should be held at a high threshold when it comes to adherence to the design guidelines.
Jordan, I do want to interject one item, and all of your points are fine, but my question is on a bungalow. A bungalow, and I'm certainly no expert, but is there such thing as a 2-story bungalow? Because this house was not built as 1 story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So
Yes,
Fair enough. Because you can see the original imprint of the house when you look at the side. When you see you see the peak like this. That is the original portion of the house. The house has had 4 additions.
Yep.
And as William Waters has put it, the style of the house is, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm sure he won't agree with this, but the style of the house is literally additions. That's what's happened to it. It doesn't have really that anymore. What the board decides on the door is what the board's going to decide.
Yeah, I have to agree completely with Mr. Hodges. I think that a 1915 house, or whatever the year is, would not have had anything similar to a leaded glass door, and that there's some better examples. So I would like to go with the original set of criteria that are shown. But how's the rest of the board feel?
Well, with the doors, we've denied others the ability to install similar doors.
That's right, we've denied
And
others.
so it's kind of hard for me to go and approve this. What about you had photos of doors that had glass in it. Couldn't you do like a beveled glass in some of those doors, like on the right? Would that be suitable?
I'm not entirely against alternatives. I will say when I first went through the design guidelines, most of the doors were frankly horribly unattractive. In fact, the pink one's a perfect example right there with the checkerboard pattern. And that's why I pointed out the look of the house would, in my opinion, be atrocious with that door. It would just be a literal checkerboard. So we were looking for something with a little more class and style to it. I understand that those doors themselves could be selected like that, but with if I get this right, the similar glass inserts, but a tinted glass just without all of the ornate features to them, if I'm describing that right, Jordan.
We have never permitted tinted glass, as far as I know.
Low E glass. I'm not sure. I'm no historic buff,
What about
so I'm going to
frosting?
get it wrong here, but please correct me with my layman's terms, Jordan.
Sure, absolutely. So Mr. Murata and I did have a long discussion about doors. And in terms of glass, what we can typically approve for these structures are clear glass and glass with a clear low E coating, which is exactly what we replace for windows. We don't allow tints, gray, or our standard language for window and door replacement is no tint glass, no gray glass, no colored glass, beveled, leaded, or etched. So you could look at doing, we have allowed in the past for applicants who want to utilize a large pane of glass on their front door and who still want a little bit of privacy. I don't know if we've ever done it on this type of structure, but to do some sort of opaque interlayer or semi-opaque interlayer, that's something that we could discuss. But I believe that you could get probably any of these style doors certainly clear and likely with the clear low E.
So if I'm not able to do something attractive and I'm designated back to this stuff, how, help me understand what would address the privacy, or should I just take my existing glass now and just replace the door around it because that was permitted?
I'm sorry, Mr. Murata, you're gonna have to repeat that for me.
Sure. My main concern is for privacy. Well, obviously I wanted something that looked good. That's out the window. So in terms of what's there now, which is opaque, it's certainly shaded, so it does provide a level of privacy. So really my question is there something that's permitted that will provide a level of privacy for both of those doors?
Well, I mean, if you'll look at the screen right now, the section on bungalow doors, if you drop straight down, there are plenty of doors that are more than 3/4 opaque doors, wood doors, fiberglass doors, steel doors that have a small divided light pattern at the top. Certainly no one would be able to see into your house from the street with something like that. In addition, you know, we have plenty of applicants who do utilize, you know, a blind or shade system behind a door if increased, you know, privacy is desired.
Sure. Absolutely. I'm looking at the certificate of appropriateness, the condition number 6, which recommends a frame vernacular or bungalow section. I think that you folks can find something that does a better job than the leaded glass version.
No, I'm gonna have to go against that since I was one of his pictures.
I thought I took that out.
No, it was in there.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would hate to lose my front door, and I mean, I love it.
Did you get a permit for it?
I bought the house with it.
Oh, mhm.
That's an excuse.
Yeah.
Opened up a can of worms here.
Well, if it broke, I don't know how I'd replace it.
Mhm.
Don't
Okay.
break it.
Is there more discussion or can I hear a motion?
Yeah, I just want to put my 2 cents in, if it's okay.
Yep, Mr. Dorinzo, go ahead.
Wonderful. I went through pretty much exactly what Anthony's going through about 10 years ago. 2-story structure, you know, right around the corner. Odd bathroom under the stairs, laundry room outside, the whole thing. I like what he's presenting. I agree with staff regarding the door, Anthony. I'm sorry. I just feel a bungalow style or some other type of door rather than the leaded glass door would be more appropriate for the structure. That's just my
Would you like
2
to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have one public comment,
Oh, okay.
and it is from Mr. Brian Gleason. And his address is given as 302 North Palm Way. And he is for supporting Mr. Murata. It says, as a Lake Worth Beach resident for nearly 50 years, I value neighbors like the Muratas and understand their commitment to our neighborhood and our community. When private citizens have the will, the time, and the money to invest in their homes, and I believe the returns are not just to the individual property, but the community as a whole. I've seen my neighbors' plans, and I am impressed by their desire to add value and preserve the historic character of their home. Therefore, I strongly encourage the board to approve the Murata's plans, which will foster improvements and improve maintenance from surrounding properties.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, more comment or can I get a motion?
Make a motion if you want.
Okay. Mr. Dorinzo, go ahead.
I move to approve HRPB project numbers. Really? 2001-00089 and 2001-50001 and 2001-6000001 and 201-6000002 and 201-600-0003 with staff recommendations, conditions for certificate of appropriate for a plus 109 square foot addition and variance from base flood elevation requirements of the Florida Building Code, and 3 historic waivers for the minimum required side setback, maximum building lot coverage, and floor area ratio limitations for the property located at 327 North Lakeside Drive, based upon the competent substantial evidence and the staff report pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach Land Development Regulation and Historic Preservation Requirements.
Thank you. We have a motion from Mr. Dorinza. Do we have a second?
May I ask a question before we go for a second?
Sure.
Can you approve that with not approving the front door?
The motion
should
as
second
made
and
is,
then discuss.
I made my motion.
Okay, I'll say.
You need a
Second.
second.
we need a
A
second.
second,
Second by
Judith.
Judith, just.
Judith Just. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
No,
Aye.
no, wait a second.
Aye.
Well, you
No.
can have,
Wait a second. Wait a second. You- Okay, you got a motion and a second. You need to have discussion on the
All right.
motion.
Yes, Mr. Guthrie.
Well, no, I heard that somebody wanted to discuss the merits of the motion and clarify what the motion was approving, and I would imagine it had to do with the door.
Correct.
So what is
So-
the motion maker's intention when it comes to is that the approval of 2016-0003?
It says with staff recommended conditions.
With staff recommended conditions.
And the conditions would not allow that door?
Correct.
Okay, I mean, that's what I was looking for on the clarification.
Okay.
I didn't know what it was.
Are there more comments or are we ready for a vote?
Ready to vote.
Okay, all in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay,
Do we have, how many nays do we have? Do we have a nay?
A, B. 1.
Oh, okay. Judith Fox, okay. All right, motion passes 5-1, I guess. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your consideration, everyone. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And good luck. Nice house.
Thank you.
Last item or next item, 731 North J Street.
Let me get it set up here. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Hurry up.
Are there too many programs? Okay. So this is item E, HRPB project number 20-001-00052. And this item is an appeal of the development review official's decision regarding the expansion of a legal non-conforming garage apartment at 731 North J Street. Okay, so the property in question is a corner lot with frontage on North J Street to the west and 8th Avenue North to the north. It is located in the single-family, two-family zoning district and the Northeast Lucerne Local Historic District. Okay, so the original architectural drawings, the original architectural drawings are located in the city's property files, and those have been included as attachment B. The primary building on the parcel was constructed in 1953 as a residential duplex And in 1955, a rear one-story garage apartment was constructed on the lot. You can see that little clip here in the slide where the garage apartment was being constructed. So although designed to have the outward appearance as a single-family residence, the primary building was constructed as a residential duplex. As you can see on the plan drawings on the right, Unit 1 has primary access off of 8th Avenue North, while Unit 2 had primary access off of North J Street. And each unit was designed as a one-bedroom apartment. So this is the front building. In the elevation drawing above, you can see the 8th Avenue North facade of the rear garage apartment. The garage apartment consists of 2 vehicular garage stalls and a garage apartment with a living and sleep room, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a closet. This is the rear garage apartment as it sits today. It is in the same configuration as it was permitted to be in 1955, with a small garage, or with a small apartment and a 2-bay garage. As seen, as we just went over in the architectural drawings, there are 3 residential units on the parcel. The property is located in the single-family, 2-family residential zoning district, and the maximum density allowed under the current land development regulations in the SFTF 14 zoning district for a 50 by 135 foot wide parcel is 2 units. So we'll just go through a little bit of a timeline and background on the project. The current owner did purchase the property on September 16th, 2019. And on October 25th, 2020, the applicant submitted for a zoning verification letter regarding the status of the existing property. The zoning confirmation letter stated that the existing 3 units are considered existing legal nonconformities and were grandfathered subject to the regulations of Land Development Regulations Section 23.5-3 nonconformities. And the purpose of that section is to allow for the continuation of nonconformities which were legally permitted or established prior to the current LDRs. This section covers the non-conforming uses of land, non-conforming lots of record, non-conforming buildings and structures and so on, and provides for their continued existence based on their legal non-conforming status, but discourages and disallows the expansion or enlargement of such nonconformities. On January 7th, 2020, staff received a proposal seeking modifications to the rear garage apartment structure. Per the plan submitted, the application sought to expand the existing 325 square foot apartment into the area of the structure that was historically permitted and currently serves as a 2-bay garage. That area is highlighted in yellow on your slide, and you can see where the garage bays have been converted into living spaces. A zoning determination letter by the city's development review official was issued on January 17th in response, stating that the existing 3rd legal non-conforming unit may not be expanded to any portion of the building not previously put into a residential use, as expressly prohibited in Section 23.5-3 nonconformities. So Section 23.5-3E provides for non-conforming uses of buildings and structures. Section 2 states that no non-conforming use of a structure may be extended to any portion of a building or structure not previously put to such use prior to the adoption of the regulation given rise to the nonconformity. So the property currently has a multi-family use, meaning that it has 3 or more units, whereas the current zoning today permits a maximum of 2 residential units on the parcel. Therefore, the use of the property is non-conforming with the current land development regulations. So that means that the existing 3 legal non-conforming units may not be extended or expanded to any portion of a building or structure not previously put to such use prior to the adoption of the current LDRs. So therefore, the proposal to expand the 325 square foot garage apartment into the garage space is in violation of that LDR. The applicant, Wes Blackman, on behalf of 731 North K Street LLC, is appealing this decision by the city's development review official, which denied the request to expand into the structure's garage space. Per LDR section 23.2-17, the applicant may appeal a final decision from the development review official to the Historic Resources Preservation Board within 30 days of the official's written response. And the applicant did meet that appeal deadline. I believe that the applicant, Wes Blackman, does have a presentation for us this evening. So let me see if we can get that loaded and Mr. Blackman's speaking capabilities set up.
There I am. Hi.
Just getting your PowerPoint set up. One moment.
Okay, I appreciate it. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board and staff.
Hello, Mr. Blackman.
Yes, Senior Principal Urban Planner with CWB Associates. It's my own firm in Lake Worth. And I'm helping out 731 North J Street LLC today. And the owner of the LLC is Michael Coyle. He's a gentleman that has at least three other properties that I know of in Lake Worth. He's an investor. He's also looking at commercial property up and down Dixie Highway. You might recall in February at the Historic Resource Preservation Board, we presented 703 North K, and that was to put a second story on a garage, and the major change there was just reorienting the gable on the roof on the garage. And you gave us high praise for that. Also part of the team is Jeffrey Harris. He's the architect that's been assisting us with the project. So this is my first time doing a PowerPoint by remote control. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, just if you would, just let me know whenever you'd like me to change slides.
Next slide, please. Okay, as Jordan said, this is a, when I was chairman of the Planning and Zoning and the Historic Resource Preservation Board, occasionally this does come across the dais. You have applicants appealing an administrative decision. It's not something you see every day, but it does happen and it is allowed by code. I think what you'll come to see, hopefully by the end of my presentation, is that we relied as a development team, the architect, the property owner, me as the planner, on substantial reliance of the meetings that we had with the staff that I'll outline in a chronology, that this was not an issue going through the pre-application process. And it really will come down between a choice of whether you want to see parking spaces outside a building off of 8th Avenue North, or if you'd like to see a terrace that might host a barbecue party and that kind of thing with the resident that would be in this Unit B. So next slide, please. What I want to stress is that this is a very simple request. We're asking to approve. I need to change my view here, just a moment. There we go.
Is this a one-bedroom unit? I thought it was a studio.
It was permitted as a one-bedroom unit, and I will get to the letter, the zoning confirmation letter, but the official word that we received from the city was that the 3 units were approved as one-bedroom units, but that comes later in the presentation. But I want to point out to the board that this is a very simple request. It's trying to improve a contributing resource. One thing Jordan didn't mention, and we submitted a COA application at the beginning of January. These are pedigreed buildings here. The 1953 building is an Edgar Workman, and the 1955 building is, I believe it's Andrew Weeks. Is that correct, Jordan?
Arthur Weeks.
Arthur Weeks, okay. And they're both known architects, signature architects, pedigreed architects in Lake Worth. And so it's unique to have these two structures on the same property done by two prominent architects. And that's something we should keep in mind. Next slide, please. Now, when I say this is a very simple request, this is the only part of the code that we're really asking for a more liberal interpretation of. And it's section 23.5-3 sub E number 2. And I've highlighted it for you there. No non-conforming use of a structure may be extended into any portion of a building or structure not previously put to such use. So in this case, that building B, the second building that was built, was permitted as a 1-bedroom unit with 2 garage spaces. So all we were going to ask for, and as we led through the process at the end of last year, we always put forward that we were going to change the 1-bedroom unit in the garage to a 2-bedroom unit and do something very attractive outside the northern wall of the garage building. I would say that the recipe for this and what was advertised, it sounds like we're asking for the complete overturning of the Constitution and the city charter and the Code of Hammurabi and the Magna Carta, because it talks about sections 2.3.27, which are the Historic Resource Preservation Board purpose and duties. We're overturning the single family, 2-family 14 a zoning district, which is called out there in 23.3-8, and the entire historic preservation ordinance, all 20 pages of it. It's like we're asking for appeal of that. So I just want to be very clear that this one part of one sentence is all that we're asking for relief from, and returning the staff's decision. Next, please. Okay, the chronology, as Jordan said, September 16th, 2019, the client purchased the property at 731 North J Street. And I want you to picture, we have pictures later on towards the end of the presentation. It's not a long presentation. I know the night's getting long. There are about 20 slides, but it'll move quickly. 731 North J is not the garden spot of the world. It abuts a Dixie Highway commercial to the west. It has the lovely use of a crematorium at the corner of North 8th Street and North 8th Avenue and Dixie Highway. Across the street, we have a house of worship and a parking lot with very little landscaping. So we have a pedigreed property, contributing resource with examples of 2 prominent architects' work that is on the edge of civilization in a way. And there are times you can go back in news articles where there have been regulation problems in terms of the crematorium and the smoke that comes from the chimney and so forth. So for someone to invest in this property and improve it is really a giant leap forward and really should be commended in terms of taking a potentially difficult property. So very soon after Mr. Coyle bought the property, he engaged my services and I suggested that we sit down with city staff, which we did on October 18th, and we met with the community development staff about the certificate of appropriateness process. We knew it was a contributing building. We discussed the physical changes to the property, the application process, and the fact that there were 3 existing units on the property, and we realized that the zoning district only allowed 2. And I had already been through the property file and determined that those buildings were approved prior to the code restricting it to 2 units. But just to be sure, we wanted to get a zoning confirmation letter for the number of residential units that would be considered legal in at 731 North J Street. So I put together a letter. Next page, please. And you can hit it twice. I did this in reverse and didn't have time to change it, but there's the actual letter that I sent. And once more, there's the actual letter that I sent to the city requesting this. And we were very upfront. In this letter of October 24th, you can see that second highlighted paragraph. The only change anticipated is to expand the current efficiency unit in the garage building to a 2-bedroom unit. This would utilize the space currently used for vehicle storage in the existing garage. On October 18th, we met with Abraham Fogel and Alexis Rosenberg of the Office of Community Sustainability. We discussed the existing density of the property and reviewed the parking requirements for the desired unit configuration. So we're not trying to hide anything. We didn't even know that there would be a problem. We're sitting down face to face when we could meet face to face and talk this over. And next, please. Then about a week later, we did get a letter back from the city of Lake Worth Beach. You can click next, it'll zoom in on the sections. And we get this response. Specifically, it addressed the parking situation, which we'll go into. The conclusion was that the parking requirement would be the same whether it was a 3 1-bedroom units or 2 1-bedrooms and 1 2-bedroom unit combination. It said that the existing 3 units are considered legal nonconformities and grandfathered subject to the regulations. And then the small print led us to the 23.5.3, which we're finding seeking relief from. Next, please. When Mr. Coyle bought the property, next, there were existing code violations, which were all addressed, and he did get a business tax receipt to rent the apartments, 3 units, 3 bedrooms, and that was sometime at the beginning of the year. But our first meeting was also to satisfy the requirement of the code enforcement officer. He was a new owner of the property, and he was addressing items that were deficient under the previous owner. Next, please. Okay, we got the zoning confirmation letter from the city of Lake Worth. And then on November 27th, we had another meeting with the city of Lake Worth Beach Community Sustainability staff. And this was with Jeffrey Harris, the architect. I think Michael Coyle joined us. And we talked both about 731 North J Street and 703 North K Street, which I mentioned before, which you approved at the February meeting. And we talked about both projects. And specifically with this one, we talked about the conversion of the garage unit B from 1 to 2 bedroom and discussed that again, and no indication of a problem. Next, please. Okay, this is a chronology, and I snipped this directly as it appears in my Google Calendar. This was on my calendar, 731 North J and 703 North K Street deadlines, Tuesday, January 7th. That's when we submitted for the February meeting for both projects. Then, without a phone call, without any kind of notification other than receipt of a 2-page letter signed by William Waters, we are found that we can't go into the area that was used as the garage with a 2-bedroom apartment. And suddenly we're in violation of land development regulation section 23.5-3E2, which we've covered before. And the conclusion of that was that our COA application, which we completed and submitted, and much of that when it's back up in your packet for tonight, you can see what was posted, a complete set of plans based on the meetings that we had had with staff before. And then this came as a complete surprise, January 17th. So under my advice as a certified urban planner, I suggested that the administrator.
Mr. Blackman, could you wrap it up, please?
I'm sorry?
Please wrap up your presentation. Usually we allow 10 minutes.
Well, it's important to get this all on the record, so I'm going to hurry as much as possible, and I'm almost finished. Next, please. Okay, so here are the parking requirements before and after. And you can see in the box there, the 1 space per bedroom with a maximum of 2 spaces per unit, additional 0.5 guest space per efficiency in 1 bedroom unit, no additional guest spaces required for units containing 2 or more. Next. And that's the parking chart for the existing conditions, all 1 bedroom apartments. Next. This is the parking requirement for the proposed condition, which would just be the addition of the 2 bedroom unit in the garage apartment. Next. This is a survey of the property. Next, just, yeah, and you can see you can see the details of the property. The concrete pad that is there next to the northern property line has been removed. Mr. Coyle's removed that. You can see the locations of the existing apartments and their configuration. You can see where the garage is in relation to everything else on the property. Okay, this is how it is today. And the legal parking spaces are provided in the garage and in the area that is off the street on 8th Avenue. This is what is permitted today and could happen. And this layout I call the bloody knuckle layout, because if you were in apartment A or B, you would always be knocking on your neighbor's door saying, can you move your car, please? I need to get my car out. My car's in the garage. Okay, well, I'll switch it with you. And it would be a crazy situation. So this will get all the parking off the street. You'd have tandem parking and you'd have the 5 required spaces for the residential units for the existing conditions. Next. And here's another layout which relies again on street parking and still has the 2 cars in the garage. And I doubt that someone is going to open and close the garage every time, and you will probably just have cars on that unpaved apron that was there before. Next. And that's what this configuration is. Next. And we all know in real life that garages are usually used to store junk, and they're usually not occupied anyway. So the tenant of Unit B could put all their stuff gathered through 40 years of life and use it as his storage room and make that garage uninhabitable, but really be part of his unit or his or her unit. So next. And that's what these places usually look like. And there's nothing wrong about code or anything like that. You can use a garage for this sort of thing. Next. So this is our proposal now, and this is 3 parking spaces that will back out onto 8th Avenue North, and it would not be a tandem situation. We would have 3 units on the property, which is not increasing the number of units on the property. It's meeting the parking requirement because we could have 2 parking spaces on the street. We have a nice 2-bedroom apartment with a terrace area. It could be used for barbecues.
Mr. Blackman, please
to
wrap it up.
The property. And I'm just about finished, Mr. Chairman. This is important to get on the record. Next, please. Next. Next. And next. Okay, so the solution is the 2-bedroom garage unit, better use for neighborhood and property values overall. Next. And this is the property as it appears today. I took this on Monday, And I'd like to point out the car carrier that is parked next to the crematorium, which is a stone's throw from the next picture. And that's the similar to the one, just a different angle that Jordan showed before for the staff part of their presentation. Next. So this is our ultimate configuration. And if you overturn the staff determination, that's what we can do and improve the neighborhood and have a better place for everyone in the city of Lake Worth Beach. And we'd like to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board?
Will the existing garage doors remain?
That would be a discussion we could have when we apply for a certificate of appropriateness. We're open to retaining the garage doors. We're open to removing them and providing an indentation indicating that garage doors were there at one time, but that really is a discussion for another night.
Oh, we're just discussing usage. Okay.
Yeah.
Change it. Yep.
Can I ask a question? Why is there grass in front of the garage doors and why are the lights in the garage doors blacked out? Has construction begun?
No,
They're
construction
blacked
has not begun.
Why is there grass there?
Nobody
The
used
grass
the
is there
garage.
because the owner wanted to put grass there. And no one is living in this, in either of the two buildings right now.
And there's no car in that garage where the grass is?
No,
Right,
the whole building is vacant. This property is not being used right now because it's subject to this approval. And he didn't want to rent it out because he didn't know what the time frame would be. And he's
there's
just
no
we're going
construction
through the
has been-
process here.
No construction has begun in the garage.
No, absolutely not.
Mr. Chair,
Questions from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Pamela Ryan. I just want to, we've heard a lot. I just want to rein the board in. You are here on an interpretation of a code provision. You're not
Thank
here to discuss the project. You know, that was interesting information, but it's not really relevant to why you are here this evening on this particular issue. So I just don't want you to get pulled into a discussion about the project. Let's just try to stay on interpretation, whether or not you believe that this section of the code applies as staff is suggesting that it does. And that this is a non-conforming use that cannot be expanded, which is what staff is saying the applicant is trying to do here.
Well, it certainly appears that way to me, but let's hear from other board members.
Well, hello. I live in Barrow Cove and usually take the street to go to Dixie, and you have the church right there, and you have it's a busy corner, and I never see anybody use. Like I said, I use it at least once a day. I never see use it as a garage in that property. And I own a property a couple of years ago, 31 South Lakeside Drive, and I have a garage. And I have the same idea. As a landlord, you have to squeeze everything possible on your property. But I went to the city, I mentioned to you know, I have this nice size garage there. I want to make extend one of the apartments. But for now it's illegal because that's the way it is. Nowhere we can buy a property and we start squeezing every inches in the property just to get some money. Will be different. I don't know if the owner or the new owner, if he's moving in, he'll be or just will be a landlord who just can't collect the money. And the traffic is in that corner, especially the whole street is tremendous. Just try to go from, I don't know, 7:30 to 9:30. After 9:30, the car wash, they open it. And the same time, they have a list of cars. And, you know, I know I had a sentiment, and so we invest the money and we had to get the money back as soon as possible. The same time, we had to be good neighbors. How is possible we want to squeeze every and put every problem we have in the streets? You imagine that will be 3 apartments there, will be 6 cars sitting there, at least 6 cars. And I think you have like a Pamela mentioned. I think we jump in and we had to establish first if it is legal or illegal. If not, why are we wasting our time talking about something we don't know? If Pamela mentioned it's illegal, well, too bad. We had to respect the law, you like it or not. Or
I agree completely.
That's my opinion. Sorry. Thank you.
I don't understand why we're even here. I know Mr. Blackman has a honey tongue and has made all sorts of appeals to the heart, but there is no wiggle room in this law, in this regulation that's in front of us. No conforming use of a structure may be extended to any portion of a building. Now, this owner has to have known that when he bought the building, and this talking about, oh, it's a 2-bedroom, it's a 1-bedroom, but we can park otherwise. I'm sorry, the law is the law. And in my opinion, I don't think there's an opinion. I think the law is very clear here. There's no wiggle room. Other members, thoughts?
Chip Guthrie.
Yep, Chip.
Chip Guthrie.
Mm-hmm. Go for it, Chip.
Trying to stick strictly with what we are here to determine. If that rule, the rule pertains to this particular property. Okay, the property is non-conforming to the extent that when it was built, it was allowed to have 3 units. 2 apartments in 1 building, 1 looks to be a smaller apartment in the second building, along with the garage space. The question that I would have well, number one, our rules changed. So in other words, at one point, if you bought the property right next door to that property, you would be able to put in 3 units. And whether those units were all the same size or whatever, at some point in time, our laws allow you to put in 3 units on that piece of property. Going into the structure, I think Bob's question is very relevant, because what we're looking at as a historic board is can the historic features, the contributing structure, can it maintain that same look with the garage doors? In other words, the appearance, and we do an awful lot with appearances of things. The author of
we're whether or not they can extend non-conforming use in a structure. We're not looking at what they're going to do to the building on
aesthetically, correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also,
that would come later.
Right, and this is the zoning issue. This is not a historic preservation issue. It has,
Correct.
we're not even looking at anything from a historical standpoint.
Yeah, I think it comes down to where you say prior to adoption on 23.5-3E, where it's prior. He didn't finish the sentence.
I mean, it's pretty much spelled out in our rules and regulations, and we do have to abide by our rules and regulations and the historic rules and regulations set forth by.
May I just interject here for a second?
Yes.
All right, Jeffrey Harris. I understand the conundrum here in that the project is changing the use of that, or not changing the use, but yeah, well, I guess it is changing the use of 2 bays of an old garage into habitable space. My question is, though, the way the law or the way the rule is written, it says that you can't move into existing non-conforming space. Well, what does that really mean? Does that mean you can't? The project already is non-conforming. That is, there are 3 units on a 2-unit piece of property right now, according to current regulations. So I would wonder why the project couldn't be made nicer, the building itself couldn't be made nicer, or the unit itself couldn't be made nicer by taking over those bays to become living space. That's my, I mean, I think there's a gray area in there in the law as to what non-conforming really means in this particular case, because it's already non-conforming.
I didn't see any gray area.
I
It's in
wanted to,
front of us.
could I continue my thought?
Sure.
The question that I have, and this comes about on a couple different fronts, is the author of the new regulations. When we decided at some point to change that area from a 3-unit per lot to a 2-family, and that was prior to what's the date on that? When it was changed from 3 to 2?
I don't think we determined the date. It would have been sometime after the construction of the garage apartments. So it could have been the 1970s. It was whenever the SFTF zoning district was adopted.
Correct.
Okay, and we don't know when that was. Well, the comment was going to be that if the author of the change is then additionally the development review official, and in other words, that's a determination that's made at that point. So then the second question was, if, let's just say hypothetically that there were 2 units instead of 3 on that particular property, and it was conforming right now, and the second unit had a 2-car garage with a small apartment. By our code today, would he be able to expand that second unit into the 2 garage bay if that property was conforming?
Yes. So so the front building is currently a duplex, the back building is the garage apartment. If that front building were a single family residence, then very likely, yes, the applicant could expand the garage apartment into the garage. Of course, they'd have to comply with all zoning and historic preservation regulations, but that is plausible. The non-conforming use is the fact that the parcel is currently serving as a multi-family parcel, meaning 3 units or more. So that's what it means when you can't expand use. You can't expand that multi-family use any further when you're only allowed single family or a 2-family residence on that parcel.
No, okay, so my comment is, I agree with the fact that this would definitely be against that code, that section of our land development regulations.
Yes.
You know, there's no question there. Now the question, you know, so the only problem that I had was if this were just situated a little bit differently, he would have every right to go ahead and expand into that 2-car garage.
But it isn't. Can we hear from other board?
Associated with the units themselves?
Who's speaking?
This is Judith. Yes. Is garage space associated with that unit that's in the garage?
Yes.
I would say just by proximity.
How do you distinguish wherever does it? I'm trying to sort this out. You have garage space, you have living space.
In answer to that question, I would say they are by proximity because they are adjacent and under the same roof. But in operation as a multifamily 3-unit property, anyone could have the right or stake their claim to one of those spaces if they lived in
I don't think that's relevant.
eastern building.
No, but if
And,
garage space is considered part of the unit, the non-conforming unit, then you're not really adding space.
But the problem is it's all non-conforming right now because of the 3 units.
Yeah.
No non-conforming use of a structure may be extended to any portion of a building. It's right there.
It's clear as can be.
But
it's clear.
Built by 2 prominent architects on the same lot.
But what I'm trying to get at is how is the garage space actually designated? Is that considered part of the space that's already non-conforming?
So it's So you would have, yeah, so I mean, the non-conforming use is the 3 units. So the expansion of any of those units into existing space that's not put to that use, or through via an addition, anything like that would be prohibited per this LDR section.
When you say use, do you mean living use or rental?
Yeah, so living area.
Because if you're saying rental and part of the rental space is the garage, then it might already fall within the non-conforming and be able to be expanded into that.
And that's
space.
the
I think
gray
you have to-
area, and that's the interpretation that we would like to be made, is that we see that as part of the existing use and not an expansion of that use, because it was rented along with a space on that property that has
Yeah,
3 units.
if you rented the 3rd unit and it included the garage, because you're not distinguishing actual living as opposed to storage space, you're just saying use, then it's part of the unit.
Right.
And it could fall within that.
You want to say hi?
Judy, that appears to me to be irrelevant of who uses those spaces. I mean, if you look at the new one, how do you
You rent a
assign
space.
spaces to different units, to different apartments? That's not relevant to what we're looking at on the screen. It says that no building or structure, the no
I'm saying we're not
non-conforming structure may be extended.
The garage space is already part of that.
I can hardly hear you. Can you speak louder?
I said, we're not expanding it. If the garage space is already considered part of the unit and non-conforming unit, then you're not expanding it.
And that's what we would like to believe.
Yeah.
But Judith, what we're talking about is the use of the structure. So the use of the one portion, the use of the one portion is residential, where the use of the other portion is storage or garage.
Or garage.
Yeah, but if the residential is with the garage, I mean, isn't that all part of it? I mean, you can't, are you gonna say, okay, you can have a garage, but you can't live there, or you can't use the garage? I mean, this is what I'm trying to say, is when you rent a place, do you rent the unit, and isn't the garage part of the residential? Maybe you're not living in it, but it's part of living in the unit. It's part of the space.
I don't think that follows at all.
Disagree.
It's a gray area, and I think it is gray.
I don't think it's as gray as it is. You pull up any tax record or any tax card, it's going to show garage, storage, living area, under air.
But it doesn't say in the code living versus storage.
But we're starting off with a non-conforming property right off the bat. The entire building is non-conforming, or the 3rd unit, whichever unit you pick.
The entire building is non-conforming. So then how can you say you can't expand into that area? I mean,
Do we have other comments from board members, or does someone want to make a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
All right.
Okay, regarding, geez, this is
Page 4.
Oh,
thank you, Mr. Chair. Thought I had it one time here.
The motions are on the screen as well. If you look at your screen, Mr. Guthrie.
They are. I will say that I made a mistake there. That first motion should just say I move to approve. So don't include that /deny portion. The second motion would be for denial.
Oh, never mind for right now, because I'm either,
Do you have it on your screen?
okay. I do, and I can't, there, I can move it around. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to deny HRPB project number 20-001-00052 and appeal to the Development Review Official's decision interpreting the city's land development regulations to disallow the expansion of the legal non-conforming garage apartment.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ozzy. Is there additional discussion, or shall we move to a motion, to a vote? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
I hear one nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your time tonight, board.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you, Mr. Black.
Good to see you all.
All right, we are now into item F. Consideration to recommend the city commission to transmit your water supply, blah, blah, blah. Does someone want to,
We do have, Julie Parham and Brian Shields, who are available to make a presentation on this item. This is a comprehensive plan text amendment, adopting by reference our new water supply plan. Brian, I see you're online. If you want to go ahead and take over from me.
Sure. Thank you, Erin. Good evening, board members, Madam Attorney. This is Brian Shields, and I am the city engineer and water utility director, and asking tonight for your approval to move this item forward to the city commission. What it is we have to do every 5 years an update to our 10-year water supply plan in conjunction with the water management district's revision to the Lower East Coast Water Supply Plan to make sure that we don't cause any harm to the environment, make sure that our water supply system has adequate needs for future demands and population growth. So under Section 373 of Florida statutes, we're required to update our plan in conjunction with the Water Management District's LEC plan, and then transmit it to the state for approval, as well as making a text amendment to the infrastructure element of our comprehensive plan to include this particular document. Now, the document is included in your package, as well as the sample ordinance that we hope to present to the city commission at a future meeting. We do have to go as not only through you, but through the Planning and Zoning Board as the local planning agency. And this is a routine procedure. This takes place every 5 years. So with that, and as mentioned, Julie's on the line. Julie is one of the primary authors of this document with our consulting engineer, Mark Roos. So if there happen to be any questions on the technical side. But it's a procedural matter that does require approval of this board to move forward to City Commission at the next available meeting and to keep us in compliance with Florida statute section 373. With that, I would be glad to take any questions on this particular item.
Just would like to add that that if you are interested in making a motion on the item, the motion would be to recommend approval or denial to the city commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
go ahead.
I move to recommend PZB HRPB PR number 20-004-00002 to the City Commission to transmit to the state of Florida the 2020 10-year water supply facilities work plan for reviewing, including the adoption of the related amendments to the comprehensive plan.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by whom?
Chip Guthrie.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Dorinzo, seconded by Mr. Guthrie.
I have a question for Mr. Shields.
Any additional discussion?
I have a question for Mr. Shields. Wanted to find out, when I was going through the the backup on this, it showed an awful lot. It showed our well field, and it showed several wells that we have that are slated for abandonment, and several of them that have been already abandoned. This is the surficial. Is this due to surficial water contamination or depletion, dealing with droughts and things like that?
It's actually due to previous influence on saltwater intrusion. The wells east of I-95 and our water use permit were slated for abandonment, and the district prefers that we pump further west of I-95. So the future wells that you see within this program are pretty much all west of I-95, and those to be abandoned that have been identified as potential causes of previous saltwater intrusion, which has receded, I might add. We have a monitoring network in place to make sure that we do not cause saltwater intrusion, but the previous renewal of our water use permit dictated that the certain wells shown in the program be abandoned. And they are old wells as also, so they are structurally and mechanically failing.
Then the second question I've got is that there appears to be a plan for 7 additional deeper Floridan aquifer wells in the future. I thought we had 2. It appears on the plan that we have 3 of those now. Those are supposed to be really expensive to drill. Is that right?
Yes, they are much more expensive than surficial wells. We do have ultimately planned for 7, currently 3 in place to meet our present day needs. But as we do phase out surficial wells in the future, they are planned to be replaced by Floridan wells, so they do not impact the surficial aquifer.
And what is our current method of taking care of the wastewater from the reverse osmosis process at this point?
Those are disposed of by deep injection well at the water treatment plant.
And will these 7 additional wells require more deep injection wells to be drilled, or will they all still go to the same ones that are currently there?
We'll have to look at that. We have to look at the capacity of the existing deep injection well and monitor well. And if it gets exceeded in the future by adding more wells, we would have to add another deep injection well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
impressed by the professionalism of the report.
Yep.
Well done. I'm also interested in the little section where you talk about population increase in very small areas, and I find that very interesting.
Yes, thank you. We can actually thank the county for that. When this plan is prepared each 5-year cycle, all the utilities in the county coordinate with each other, and we look to Palm Beach County Planning, Zoning, and Building for their help in population projections. And they've actually, like you mentioned, they've got it down to very small traffic analysis zones, and they can look at population projected increase within each of those zones. And there are hundreds and hundreds of those zones throughout the county.
Yeah, very interesting. And good questions, Mr. Guthrie. We have a motion and we have a second. Any more discussion, or shall we move to a vote?
Call for the question.
Okay, let's move to the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Shields. Thank you.
Thank you all, board members, and have a good evening.
All right.
All right. Well done. I think we are now finished with cases and are into planning issues, public comments, department reports. Mr. Hodges, do you have some department reports?
Just one item. At the June 16th City Commission meeting, City Commission will be hearing an appeal based on a decision that you all made regarding a new construction at 403 South M Street. I don't know if you all are familiar with that or remember that one quite well, but it was a single family residence that didn't really ascribe to a particular architectural style, and there were some conditions made about the oversized driveway and column configuration. Do you remember that one?
It wasn't a very attractive, I believe, or something.
Yeah, I remember that. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
so,
simple plan, and the guy got a little obstinate with us and said, I'm going to appeal to the city commission.
that would be the one. Yep.
Yeah,
So
because he knows.
That's moving forward, June 16th. I think we have a pretty strong staff report for that. So pretty sure we're safe going into that. But otherwise, I don't really have any departmental reports. Aaron, William, do you all have anything?
I'll just add a couple things. As you know, too, the LDR recommendations that you made last month will be going for second reading next week as well. And they'll go into effect on the 26th. The Bohemian project was approved by the City Commission on first reading last night, which is the 8-story building on East Coast Street, kind of across from 1000 Lake. That will go for its second reading on June 30th. We were preparing our
building?
Pardon me?
That's an 8-story.
I'm sorry, it's 7. It's 7, pardon me. There is an 8-story building possibly coming. We also are putting together another round of land development regulation changes, including permitted use table. You should be seeing those in July. And there will be a third round that will probably come to you in September. Ms. Sita and I have been booking along, trying to catch up on all the things that were not accomplished in the last couple of years. We're also in negotiations working with the initial conceptual plan for the Gulfstream Hotel. I do hope that it will be submitted sometime next month. And if that does happen, you'll be seeing it as a recommendation as a mixed use urban plan development, either in probably in September. And so stay tuned on that. That is coming. They've made a lot of progress. And that's it for departmental reports.
Any other board member comments? We're into the board member comments, folks.
I got one.
Yes.
I just want to touch back on doors, and I'm going to back up Jordan and our chairman. Doors are a very important thing in our historic districts. I'm sorry, we spent a lot of time, money, votes, and all that to come up with what we can show, what they were showing online for these properties. And I just think doors are a very important thing. My opinion.
I absolutely agree. I know I was castigated for talking about them as Home Depot doors, but a lot of them just
you took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And I can understand, some issues with that because, we all have our own ideas of what is attractive, what is pleasant, everybody has a different taste and, what we think is beautiful. And doors are an easy thing to switch out. They're an easy thing to replace that reflect, the kind of taste and the appearance that you want your house to be. It kind of falls back into roofs. We've had this discussion about roofs a lot. And, we spent a tremendous amount of time and a lot of money on the design guidelines to give us our parameters for what is appropriate per style. So I appreciate all of your hard work on that. And I think you all made very good points.
Yeah.
I'd like to commend staff because they give a very good reasoning for their arguments in these cases that come before us. And it does give us reasons to, to think about both ends. Obviously we're here to help the residents in any way we can, people that want to invest in the city. But it's good to get that perspective. I find myself changing my mind several times, and it's a lot of times the way the staff has put together the argument. So thank you for that.
Cheers.
Yep. I have a comment. I know that we have 2 previous CRA members on the board, and I worry about, I never cease to be disappointed in what we get from the CRA. It's like the
here.
Amtrak Acela. They always come up with something less than I think we would need. Obviously, we have L&M streets coming up. I have no idea what's going to happen. There is an RFP out. But I never cease to be disappointed by what they present.
Can I answer that? A little, and it's not to make excuses or anything else, but while I was on the board, it never ceased to amaze me, sort of what is to be done or how the funds, how the funding of a agency such as a CRA, and where that funding is leveraging entire areas of the city. And once you've sat on the board, you kind of get a better idea of that. Now, do I agree with it? You know, you made some excellent points. Okay, we spent a lot of money for that, whether it was 800,000 or 2 million. We want to develop that particular block in there that has been sorely overlooked. It is a major block in, and so the CRA, it puts out RFPs for people. Okay, what can you do to help out the city, to help out the district, to help out the agency in the CRA district? And people come back with different ideas, and then they take a look at that and see which ones will fly and how it will help the entire area. The amounts that they pay for these buildings, and it's like they're giving this to development, but on the other hand, through no incentives whatsoever, that property will sit there and decay. And if the CRA had not acquired it and replaced the roof and everything else, the place would have gone right into the ground, and it would have been a historic building that was lost forever. The other thing that I want to bring up is that when I hear constantly about how much money the CRA spends. Our CRA has a budget of around, if I'm not mistaken, around $4 million. If you compare it to what Boynton has, they're upwards of 10 million. Delray is around 20 million. West Palm Beach has 2 CRAs that both are in the $20 million range for what they do up there. And they all do about the same thing. So if you were to look at how our CRA and what Joan is able to do with the very limited amount of funds that we have in our CRA, and you know, and I know what you're all looking at, and I looked at it the same way, and I sat on that board, and I saw a lot of good things happen. I saw, you know, the vision that is put forth in the area behind where Rounding Third was, or the old chamber building back in there. That is something, you know, when you look 20 years down the road and there is a nice development back in there that enhances the city of Lake Worth and brings people downtown, okay, then you're gonna say, well, that was a CRA project. And there's a lot of CRA projects that didn't work out well. We put money into that school that went kind of belly up around the bank building at 13th Avenue North in Dixie. You know, we've tried a lot of things, and you throw enough stuff against the wall and see what sticks. But that's not excuse, but I encourage everybody to go to those meetings too, because you are right. It is tax money that is being spent. And the latest round was of the wayfinding signage. You know, who's spending all this money? Who picked out that? I went, you know, Ozzy will tell you that we spent months and months and months and months going over the designs, and nobody could figure it out. Then when we finally agreed on a design, we sent it up to the commission, and they kicked it back to us. They didn't like our design that we picked out. So we went more months figuring out something. Everybody finally just threw up their arms and said, yeah, let's go with this. So what you see out there now is months of culmination and a lot of gnashing of teeth.
I agree with you. I think that we need to spend more time going to their meetings, holding their feet to the fire, and publicizing. They have a mandate to publicize what they're doing, and it just seems to us out here that it's all happening in the dark.
Yeah,
Mr. Dorinzo.
I agree. I'm agreeing with you.
Well, my final comment was that I really feel proud to be this part of the friends or neighbors. They try to do something for the city. I was looking this a little bit earlier, going through this, and I was thinking it's impossible to go to this quantity piece of paper, the information would be possible to digest. But thanks to Jordan, you guide us very well and keep it up. And thank you, everybody. And I see you around, and I see you next meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you. If there are no more board comments, can I get a motion to dismiss? To adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Done. Thank you, folks.
Good night, all.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.